No one cared who I was till I put on the mask.
If I pull that off, will you die?
It would be extremely painful.
You're a big guy.
For you.
Hello, listening people.
Hello.
You're listening to Spit and Polish Presents Pictures Powwow. I'm one of the hosts, Ryan Sawinski.
And I am Bartek Man.
Hello, Bartek Man. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm very well. We're doing our show Pictures Powwow, in which we talk about a movie that has come recommended, whether from you, me, or the listening people.
Wow.
So I'm really excited because we're going to be talking about movies, and that's what I live for. In fact, when you're not listening to the podcast, I'm dead. I'm in fact dead.
I'm not, but I'm in extreme pain.
Yeah, he's screaming in pain.
Every moment is agony.
Every moment is pure agony for Bartek, and I'm dead. Yeah. And we are going to be talking about a movie that came recommended from the listening people, specifically from my fiancée, Rachel.
Yay!
She suggested the 2012 movie, The Dark Knight Rises. Now, why did she suggest this? She heard me talking about The Dark Knight, and she said, Ryan, you should cover The Dark Knight Rises. And I'm like, but I'm talking about The Dark Knight. She goes, yeah, but you have more to say about The Dark Knight Rises. And I'm like, I do have a lot to say about The Dark Knight Rises in comparison to The Dark Knight, which is, it's good.
Yeah.
The end. Oh, I have a problem with the fact that it's a 4-act structured movie, but Christopher Nolan does that. So that's kind of like it. With The Dark Knight, like, we could cover it one day, but that's my only criticism, and the rest of it is like, it's great. I preferred Katie Holmes as Rachel, but I don't think anyone's going to cry a tear about that, because really, Rachel's the most boring character, not my fiancé, the character.
Did you hear that, listening people? Nepotism won.
Did you hear that,
Yeah.
Rachel?
Someone we know picked
You're
the film.
not the most boring, Rachel.
Yeah, you're not. No, Jennifer Aniston's way more boring.
Third voice is
So we
right.
got a third voice. We actually got a guest that I prominently put up as someone we're going to have in last episode. I structured them as the man I gave Miller's Crossing to, who didn't watch it for years, and then when he did, he watched it drunk.
Did I?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Alrighty.
yeah. See, he was too drunk to remember. So we got Sam Noonan. I also said that you're like a comic book aficionado and you like
thank
Batman and stuff,
do.
but I really primed it as I gave you this really good movie for your birthday on DVD, and you didn't watch it for years, and then you watched it drunk, and you were like, it wasn't funny, and I'm like, and then you're like, maybe I should watch it again.
I think my exact words were like, it wasn't that good. I think I was even more cruel than
No,
that.
no. You just said it wasn't funny, and I was like, but it's not a comedy, Sam. And you're
felt
like,
a comedy.
well, it is funny at times,
Yeah.
but it's it's Coen Brothers.
It is
If you listen
a
to our last
comedy.
episode of Miller's Crossing, you'll know what I feel.
Yeah.
So, Sam Noonan, we've got you here for The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
We're covering we've all watched The Dark Knight Rises. We all have a history with this trilogy. Bartek, can we go over yours again? Because I want to hear it again, because at the end of the last episode, you said your history with this trilogy of movies, and I was like, Sam needs to hear this.
Did I say it in the episode?
Yes, and I said you have to say this to his face in person.
Okay.
Do tell.
So I haven't seen Batman Begins. At Year 9 camp, after a very long day of activities when it was late at night.
Now you're giving some backup reason for this one.
Yeah.
Last episode, you didn't give this.
I was trying to justify
Yeah, because you're here.
They played The Dark Knight, and I struggled to stay awake because of the long, grueling day of activities.
Yep. And this one?
And this one I actually saw in cinemas because my brother wanted to.
Oh, good.
So he saw one of them awake.
I have something similar. I went and saw this in the cinemas awake also, with my group of friends, and my friend Giorgio.
The famous Giorgio.
Giorgio was like, "What's Liam Neeson doing here?" Who's he? And I was like, "He's playing the same guy from the first one." And he goes, "The Heath Ledger one," and he didn't even realize that Batman Begins was a part of.
I'll
the
give
same
him
trilogy.
defense. I didn't know about it either.
I didn't know about it until 2012 either.
2012, because I'll be honest, like, if you weren't huge into comics and stuff, I don't really remember the Batman Begins movie being prominently featured as a movie that was on here in Australia. I don't remember advertisements for it. I don't remember
Oh, I
anyone
do.
speaking about it.
All I remember is, like, my stepbrother mentioned, like, oh yeah, my friend really likes the new Batmobile, and I just said, okay.
See, I didn't know. I just remember The Dark Knight came back, and then people, in retrospect, were like, Batman Begins was a movie that was alright, but The Dark Knight, and I was like, there was a Batman Begins?
It's really the fault of advertising.
Yeah.
They should have.
And Australia, we get things so much later.
Yeah, and the titles would. I could see they went Batman Begins, then called it The Dark Knight, and then realized they had to capitalize on the success of The Dark Knight. They really should have called it Batman Begins, Batman Continues should have been the name of the second.
But that would have
film.
been the worst. And then this one is Batman Retires.
Yeah, or Batman Concludes.
They should have called it
Batman Ceases to Continue.
They should have called it Batman Act 1,
Yeah.
Batman Act
No,
2,
right.
and Batman
It should have
Act
been
3.
Part 1.
Batman First Blood,
No,
Yeah.
Batman First Blood Part 2, and then Rambo 3.
See, you were like part 1, part 2, but this is a type of franchise that thinks like it's a storybook thing.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a
Chapter.
script. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3.
Yeah.
Now, here's my if you want to go, is that all? You want to go into more of
No,
your
no,
history?
I feel like it's
I
cool.
did not see the Batman Begins movie until I entered university. I bought it on DVD, and I was like, oh, great. And I already had The Dark Knight, and I was like, great. And I watched it, thoroughly enjoyed it. Never watched it again until this week. I watched all 3 of them this week just so that I could familiarize myself with this world. And I gotta say, it's my favorite movie with Batman. Like, the Batman character. Not my favorite movie of Batman movie, but my favorite movie of the Batman character actually being a prominent character. The others, I'm like, you're doing the old Tim Burton problem where the villains are the show.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that with Dark Knight Rises. But then I saw Dark Knight, didn't see it in the cinema. I got it on DVD, and I remembered it was pretty good. I was like, yeah, that was neat, you know? Like, yeah, Heath Ledger was really good. I was more impressed with, like, Michael Caine in that movie. I was like, because I didn't really buy him as Alfred in the first one, but then Dark Knight kind of won me over. And then Dark Knight Rises, I saw in the cinema, and this is crazy. So, on paper, what I'm about to say to you sounds like the worst cinema-going experience of a lifetime, but I loved it. We saw the movie. It was freezing cold. We saw it at the cinema where they had the air conditioner on cold. So, I was freezing to death. We were in the second row in the cinema, so we were up close. I was with a friend of ours, Connor, who every scene would talk to himself and then talk to me about what a reference that is to a comic.
Yeah.
Like her scar. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look at him, like, shut up. And he just goes, she's Talia. Yeah. I'm like, Talia? Because the actor is funny. He goes, Ra's al Ghul's daughter. You remember Ra's al Ghul from Batman Begins? And I'm like, oh God. And he just started talking. I'm freezing to death. My eyes started to hurt because the aspect ratios kept changing all the time in the movie. And we're up close. And then I remember after the movie finished, Connor and I got into a heated argument about how dumb the movie was. And he was like, but the comics. I'm like, no, not but the comics, but this. But then also it was annoying because I was like, but I did like the movie. Yeah. But it was
So
really
it's
dumb.
like,
And he was like, no. And then we went to this awful party that a friend was having. And it was terrible, but we just kept talking about The Dark Knight Rises, and then we made jokes about it, like, we kept making jokes about the trilogy, and it just stuck in my memory of this viewing experience, and I look back on it fondly. Like, it sounds terrible, and it was, but I look back at it and go, I treasure that kind of movie-going experience, because I see a movie in the cinema now, and I don't have any experiences. I just go, I saw the Spider-Man movie, yep, tick. Yeah. Nothing happened. Like in this, at least it was like, oh, I remember Connor being annoying.
When you started this story with, this sounds like on paper a terrible movie going experience. I'm like, I was really
hoping for someone to die.
No, for someone to shit their pants. I was really like, and then Connor shat his pants in the middle of the film.
Well, he was shitting with excitement,
but he
I guess.
refused to leave and clean his pants. That's what
that sounds like Connor.
Yeah.
So,
Take that, Connor.
The Dark Knight Rises. We all rewatched it for this. I texted Sam earlier saying I hadn't seen it since the cinema, and you were like surprised. You were like, I've seen it several times.
Yeah.
And I said to him, there are some movies that you just need to see once, and then you don't need to see them again. And this is, at that time I said that, one of those movies. But of course, I wanted to, watch it for the show, and a part of me would only watch it again for completionist's sake of, like, I got the DVDs, I got the trilogy. Completionist's sake, like when I watch the Tim Burton Batmans, I then go through the Joel Schumacher Batman still because I'm completionist like that.
To finish it.
And I said to you, I don't need to see it again. Bartek, so what were your feelings? Like, were you like me, like I don't need to see The Dark Knight Rises again, or were you like maybe one day I'll watch the trilogy, or maybe one day I'll watch it on my own volition? Because you are not a big superhero movie fan overall.
No, I'm not. I've heard good things about Batman Begins, and obviously I've heard the legacy of Dark Knight, and even though I've technically seen it, it's that thing of like I've looked at certain frames of it in a dark room at U9 camp.
At night?
Yes.
title drop. Rise, rise, rise.
It was a dark night now that you mention it. It wasn't a light one.
So,
I probably would like to give the early ones a shot at some point. With this one, yeah, I saw it in the cinemas, and it was just another film I saw. My brother wanted to see it.
you weren't thrilled by it. You were just like, it's okay.
It's okay. I mean, obviously there were like baseline things like, oh, the Bane voice is kind of funny, and then you do an impression of it, and your friends are like, oh, you're really good at it. Like, really? I wasn't trying.
Yeah, no, you don't need to.
It's just Sean Connery and Darth Vader.
Now,
in the same voice.
Sam, how big a fan of you of The Dark Knight Rises are you? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Are you kind of about it? Like, what's your fan? Because this is apparently a very divisive movie. Like I said, I got into a heated argument about it after I saw it, and I didn't think that was going to be a thing, because to me, at that time, that's kind of changed now, that there were very obvious dumb things that I'm like, how can you not admit that that makes this movie dumb?
I think straight away there are plot holes that people took issue with. I enjoyed it. I really liked it at the time, and I would say I don't like it less now. But I've always been the kind of person that can recognize the flaws of a film and still go, I'm gonna enjoy it I'm still gonna enjoy it just as much as I did. And I'll happily look those flaws in the face
and say hello.
But I really do enjoy the film.
Great. Now, just to give a quick summary for The Dark Knight Rises before we kind of delve deeper into it, I guess the best way to describe it is Batman has to come out of retirement, come out of hiding, come out of seclusion.
Being a hermit.
To take on a new foe, a masked foe who's now in charge, or is he kind of in charge of the League of Shadows? Is he actually in charge of the League of Shadows? It kind of is vague, right? Because it feels like he isn't, but he is.
It's kind of like a
offshoot.
Offshoot.
Well, basically, the masked
League of
villain
Shadows.
Bane takes Gotham as hostage, and it's up to Batman to rise up to the challenge to fight him. But also, Marion Cotillard's secretly the villain all along. Ooh, isn't she scary? Ooh, ooh, her French accent.
Ryan, stop scaring me.
And also, Catwoman and Robin
Xenophobia is the true
and Catwoman and Robin are there. And Ben Mendelsohn's here. Like, everyone's here. The guy from Game of Thrones is here.
The guy from Prison Break.
The guy from Torchwood's here. Everyone's here. Wait, which one from Prison Break?
The prison.
He loves Prison Break.
The prison warden.
The prison warden's he's in Dark Knight. I don't think he's in Dark Knight.
Wait, which one's the prison warden?
In
this.
in
Is he a
this-
prison warden in this?
In this, yes, he's a bald guy that's like walking next to a guy.
Oh, I'm thinking of a different guy from Prison Break.
Yeah, there's a guy at the beginning of the
Is it
Dark
T.
Knight.
Baggarelli?
No.
The guy who owns the bank in the Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Oh, is he in Prison Break?
Yeah.
I just know him as the guy who's in everything. What's his
He's
name?
in
Like
a lot of
William
stuff. I have no
Finch,
Something like that, yeah.
Fishner.
I hope he's not listening because I don't know.
It's
his
William
name.
F.
That would be so.
Can I just say
embarrassing.
with the Dark Knight, I just watched it. I got him and Eric Roberts, who plays, was it Maroney?
Yeah, Sal Maroni.
I got him confused because they look like
And
no.
they
You
play-
know how
they
there are
play
actors who
similar
compete
characters.
roles.
Yeah, they would-
It's like they literally competed for the same role, and Chris Nolan was like, "Let's have you both in it. like, let's have you both."
You can be in the first scene.
So that's kind of the premise. Like, yeah, it's up to Batman to kind of come out of retirement, rise up to the challenge, learn some lessons along the way, accept failures along the way, and make Alfred cry along the way. I mean, that's... And Bane's big bad man with a voice and a mask, and he's gonna be scary. And Marion Cotillard's there, being the secret villain all along. Ooh, which is my biggest complaint in the movie still.
Well, she dies, Ryan. Don't get over it.
But going back to visit this movie, Bartek,
Yes.
what was it like for you?
Yeah, it was one of those experiences where I remembered little things from the cinema, like shots, the lines, cameos. Like, I remember at the time when I saw the Prison Break, I'm like, oh, I know this guy. And then when I saw him again, I'm like, I remember this shot.
Right.
And I remember remembering this guy.
I remember seeing it for the first time. Remembering would be the next time I watch it.
Yes,
Yeah,
of
exactly.
course.
Yeah, obviously...
Technically, you're remembering
That's
remembering
now.
it now.
We're living
Yes.
that
We're
moment
living in the
now.
now.
One of the weirdest things for me, I think when I initially saw the film, it was before I played Arkham City,
Right.
which was the first time I'd ever heard anything of Ra's
Argul in this.
A-R-A-G.
Actually, the Raz is the correct pronunciation.
Okay,
Really?
in the game they
Because
call
they're
him Raish.
Yeah.
In the trivia on this, they're like, it's wrong. It's Raish.
It's pronounced Raish in all the other Batman mythos, but in Arabic, where they derive the language from, it would be pronounced Raz. So
I mean, it's easier to
Nolan-
say Raz.
Nolan actually got brownie points for actually having what would be the correct verbal
Thank God he still cast a white guy as Bane,
Yeah.
though.
and a white guy as Raz Al Ghul.
Oh,
about to say, the Irishman.
both from the UK. Yeah, good on him. What a champ. And
Yeah,
then-
but the thing I'm getting at here is, I think in recent years you, Ryan, have talked about this film a lot, and you mentioned like, oh yeah, Talia was the villain all along. I'm like, wait, I don't remember anything of that. I just
How could you
remembered Bane.
forget?
I just remembered Bane anticlimactically
For
dying.
me, how could you forget?
I remember
because it meant nothing to me.
Yeah.
I haven't
It's
seen
not, that's the
Batman
problem.
Begins.
It meant
That's
nothing
true.
to me
if you
either.
if you hadn't that it happened like Giorgio. That was another thing, like where you were saying Connor like leaned over and said, "That's Talia."
But she's got a scar. It's
I-
from the comics.
I did something similar in the cinema with my friend Joel, where I leaned over and said, "I'm not gonna like spoil anything, but when we talk about it at the end of this film, and I say I knew that from that moment, you'll be able to say that's when he turned and made me aware that he was aware." It's pretty much as soon as you get in any of these superhero movies, if you get introduced to a character and you're given their full name in the introduction.
And you don't
And
recognize
it's not
it?
a name you recognize as a comic book fan. You know that's not who they're playing. I suppose the same can be said in
Star Trek Into
yeah.
Darkness.
yeah.
We had to go there. I was actually going to let that slide, but now I can't.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
yeah,
I
no,
mean-
it's true. But then sometimes with the Batman mythology, especially in TV and films, that's not necessarily the case. You know, sometimes you do get characters that don't exist in the comics, and then now they exist in the comics.
Yeah, true. Like-
So like the '60s Batman did that a lot, and now there are famous characters that are in the comics now because of that show, and same with the
Harley
animated.
Quinn, yeah.
Exactly. So it's not necessarily the rule. So you give it a little bit of a leeway.
There is
break.
one notable aversion to that rule in this film.
Yeah,
We didn't hear Bane's last name.
that's true.
Bane Smith. Didn't hear Smith.
Bane. So Bartek, you were kind of like coming back into this. You were just getting memories of things, but did you enjoy it more? Did you not like it? What was did you like it?
I think I was kind of neutral on it.
Still neutral, huh?
Still a little bit neutral. I mean, I did have a little extra context because I know about some memes of this film that have been popular online.
Which I did not know about until talking to Bartek last night about. Like, I knew about other memes, but I didn't know about Bane posting specifically. I knew about, like, other things about Bane's voice and jokes about the Bane thing, but I didn't know specifically the "you're a big guy" thing being a specific joke. That's a scene I forget. Like everyone talks about, like, remember that opening of the plane? And I'm like, no, I didn't, actually. I kind of forgot because nothing happens on
Speaking
the
of
plane other than the
forgetting
plane gets cut
consequences.
off.
I just realized I also saw, I can't remember what movie I was watching, but I saw there was like a special where they showed that opening scene at the
Right.
beginning of some other movie.
And you're like, now I remember. So you're still neutral on it. Why I'm pressing Bartek is Bartek's always kind of neutral or kind of on superhero or comic book movies. And I'm pressing you a bit since you haven't really seen The Dark Knight proper and Batman Begins you haven't seen. Even though you're still meh about it, would you still say that this movie is... Would you agree or disagree that this movie is still highly... like intelligent and above the grade of your regular comic book movies, or would you still say it still falls into your trappings of like the quality? Because Christopher Nolan is an auteur director. People praise this trilogy for being not just your comic book movies, but above that. Would you still think do you still think that it's just meh like comic book, or do you think they're higher than that?
I mean, honestly, when I think about like the ending stretch of the film, there's a lot of messy stuff there that I think in a film that's almost 3 hours, is this really how
It
you
kind
want
of
to...
disqualifies it in a way.
Yeah, like I mentioned already, Bane's anticlimactic end in this film, which we can get into that later, but yeah, and obviously anything that relates to the previous films, there was some iffiness on my part, and I would probably say that that's on me.
Yeah.
But then I remember that The Dark Knight is often considered a really good standalone film, and
Yeah.
you know,
It is.
on this episode of our podcast, we are talking about standalone films. So,
Yeah, the problem is...
can I really say, hey guys, forget the first two films, watch this film? Can I say that?
Probably not.
But
But like lots of you could, if you wanted to watch this trilogy again, you could easily skip the Batman Begins.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, really?
Oh, definitely.
For sure.
Here's my actual thing with Batman Begins. I'll say this: The Dark Knight, on a level, is weakened in certain regards if you've seen Batman Begins, because the Rachel relationship in Batman Begins and then transitions, not just the difference of actresses, but then transitions to The Dark Knight, kind of feels way off. Like, oh, now she's in love with Harvey Dent. Oh, how long has taken place since? Wait, what?
Yeah.
Like, there are little things like that where you go, oh, but in a standalone, fine. But in the end of Batman Begins, you kind of go, oh, okay, it's going to be like this, and then Dark Knight kind of goes, no, we're going to go this way, which you could go, oh, that's a little bit weak, but I'm just curious because you're always a bit more critical on comic book movies than the average movie-going person, and especially people who analyzes films. Like, I still think that the trilogy is still high-grade comic book entertainment, but I have my own theory. I have my own perspective on this particular movie. What about you, Sam? You love these comic book movies in particular. Do you go in the grain of thinking that these Nolan movies and The Dark Knight Rises, all these movies are the high standard of comic book movies?
I think they're not the only comic book movies that you can hold to a higher caliber. And
I mean, the
hold to a
Raimi
higher
Spider-Mans, obviously.
I think.
I mean that genuinely.
I think that like when you said it as well. Nolan's an auteur director. When you look at the production elements and the way they're treated in the film as not just a how do we get from plot A to plot B, but I think a good it's probably one that you can say about The Dark Knight. Not necessarily say about The Dark Knight Rises, but you can say about The Dark Knight that you can't say about most comic book films is if you took the protagonist out, if you took the fact that they're a superhero out of the plot, is it still a brilliant film? And I think The Dark Knight in that case is a clear yes.
Yes.
If that was just a film about a man who does all the things Batman does without being Batman, you'd be like, what a great film.
Yeah.
I think the same can probably be said for something like Captain America Winter Soldier, where if you take out
agree.
that he's Captain America, if he was just a regular high-ranking soldier,
Yeah.
and these are the decisions he had to make, and this was his backstory, you'd be like, great film, great premise.
I agree, and you could stipulate that too with, like, say, the Guardians movies. If you remove the whole Marvel
absolutely.
universe and all that,
It
you could see it
stands
as
out.
just like a Magnificent Seven in space type adventure.
Yeah.
Then it works as well. Yeah. Let's go into the more positive aspects of The Dark Knight Rises, because I feel like we're all kind of leaning on this, like, it's no, you know, like, What are some of the things that we did enjoy about this? Any particular highlight moments? What about you, Sam?
I think despite the whitewashing, I think Bane does make, until he's sort of pushed aside, Bane does make for a engaging villain to watch. He does create tension very, very well.
Oh, yeah.
And their little tricks of making Tom Hardy look bigger and more intimidating than he truly is in life.
That
and
surprised me, yeah.
obviously he worked hard to be in a certain type of shape, but you know, he's 5'9" on a warm day.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like for them to get him to Christian Bale's 6 even, and for him to tower over someone like Ben Mendelsohn, I think
Who is tall, yeah.
yeah, they did a really good job at genuinely making Bane interesting to watch. Did it have to be Tom Hardy? Probably not. But
Who would you think?
I'm probably not going to say I'm well versed enough in Hispanic male actors of that age that could have come in and played the role racially accurately and as well.
That's
I
true.
think Tom Hardy is incredibly expressive with his brows. Like
Yes.
he manages to get so much across with most of his face not being visible.
I totally agree that Bane is one of the highlighting aspects of this particular film. I agree. He is expressive with his face, but also his body,
His
like
gestures
his
and-
gestures and his stance and all of that. And you know, that's something to praise. But I also hate that because There's no way to describe. I've been dancing around it. I kind of hated this movie watching it this time around. I actually loathed it this time around because I immediately got taken out of the movie and saw that this was a construction and this was a manufactured product that was made to be consumed.
The illusion was broken.
And the suspension of disbelief, the illusion was broken. And Tom Hardy is one of the reasons. And the voice, of course, but one of the things with the physical stuff is I'm seeing Tom Hardy having to overcome the barrier as an actor of having your face obscured. So he has to do these big gestures, and I'm just noticing these gestures. But at the same time, I know as an actor, and I know from a standpoint of a film, he has to do those. But since the film has kind of broken the illusion for me, it's just like, well, there's things where I go,
It's harder for you to enjoy.
you are doing something that I can see is a construction here, is an illusion. I can see this, but he does give a brilliant performance. I think Tom Hardy really nails this role, even though I'm not familiar with Bane as a character before this movie. Like, I remember him being talked about as like the big bad guy that broke Batman's back, and that's kind of it. Like, no real, his character is like this. Just he's the big guy that broke Batman's back, and that's kind of like, ooh.
Most people's understanding of the character also comes from the Batman and Robin interpretation of the film with Uma Thurman, where they intentionally made him more like Solomon Grundy, and originally that was the character they were going to have in the film. And so most people's understanding of Bane expectations initially is that he's just a big, dumb, strong guy.
Yeah.
Whereas in the comics, it's
smart.
always been that he's just as tactile and just as intelligent, as well as the physical aspect of being the first villain Batman comes across that Batman can't outfight.
Yeah.
And that usually Batman is going to outthink someone, or he's going to outfight them.
I think
Alfred has the thing in this film where he talks about this is what's going to happen. He's smarter. He's not smarter, but
he's younger. He's stronger. He's
look at his physical capabilities. You're going to go up against this,
and that translates well into this movie. That stuff you're talking about. And as someone who isn't familiar with this character until this movie, it made me want to know more about this character and see more of him as a character, whether it be portrayed by Tom Hardy or somebody else. Like, I'm just like, this guy is an intimidating force. It's great that they didn't go you have the problem of you have the Joker, like that's, oh my god, Heath Ledger gave like one of the best performances of that decade, and how are you gonna follow that up? And I think Tom Hardy and the Bane character does do as well as a good placeholder. Like, you don't feel disappointed until the very end with Bane's as the central antagonist of this feature film. Even if you haven't seen the Batman Begins, you still understand what Bane is about. You still get what, like, he is like, I'm here.
And why he's there.
And he explains it well. You don't need to understand what Ra's al Ghul was doing in the first movie to truly understand what Bane is trying to do in this movie and what Marion Cotillard is trying to do in the end. But, that's kind of like the big thing. What about you, Bartek? What was some great positive that you got out of this movie? Is it the Bane performance? Is there anything else in this movie that was really like a high mark for you?
No, but Bane was really good. I really enjoyed Bane. I thought the acting in general was pretty decent.
Right. Any like technical things, or like an action sequence or a particular set of scenes or scene or moment that really was like, wow, that's great.
I guess it would have stood out considering in the trivia I read that Batman's only in 33 minutes of this almost 3-hour film. I guess when you first see him and he's riding the motorbike through the city and you can see all the sirens of the police chasing him, that really stuck out for obvious reasons. And like I said, when I was watching it, some shots from that stuck in my head from my first viewing, mainly when he was on the bridge with the tablet thing and the cops were coming in the distance.
Yeah, that was pretty fun.
I think that's a really good one to point out, because Batman is very much not as much the protagonist in these two films as he is in Batman Begins, and you kind of touched on that, Ryan.
Yeah.
But it's also...
Are you talking about the persona of
the
Batman?
persona of Batman as well. Yeah. I think
just a general character.
Some of the best parts of all of the films, even in Batman Begins, they did this. They did it well in the intro to Dark Knight, where you see a drug deal almost happen, and he sees the bat signal and goes, "Not tonight." Where in some ways, when you see the public idea and image of Batman, they show you in a small time. They show you look how much this character has done to affect his environment. So I think when you have the cop scene that you were describing, and one cop is sort of like, no, let him go, and the other cops are like these young cops who haven't been on the force when Batman was first around.
Yeah, and don't remember how bad it was before Batman.
Yeah, they're sort of like the fact within their world they built up this mythos of who Batman is and what he can do. And just get out of his way if you can help it.
I think the film does a really good job of establishing how the universe has been affected over this 8-year course of like the Dent Act and the Batman legacy, and how some people see him as this monster and some people still see him as that hero, and some don't believe and some do. And there's like this division between the cops and the force and children and dealers and like all this stuff. I think they did a really good job of that, and like how this city is built upon this great lie of Harvey Dent and what a hero he was, and how actually he wasn't really that great of a hero in the end. And like I think they did a really decent job on that aspect. And I think this movie, another positive I would give this movie is, when I first saw this movie, I didn't care for Anne Hathaway as Catwoman. I was just like, eh. And this time around, I actually really enjoyed her. I've been rewatching the 1960s Batman, Adam West, and
Eartha Kitt.
Well, she comes in third season with not Lee Merriweather, Julie Newmar, and she really reminds me of Julie Newmar's Catwoman, while still being her own kind of thing. Like the Julie Newmar one plays it more like she is a socialite who just does this for fun.
Yeah.
Like, she's equal to Bruce in the 60s one, while in this one, they do play around with the fact that she's poor, and, you know, she's kind of aspiring to be that, but also she despises that, and I kind of like that kind of thing, and I really appreciated her performance in this. I thought Anne Hathaway was having a blast. I thought she added some much-needed vigor and life to Christian Bale's performance, because Christian Bale... Everyone he's interacting with, other than Catwoman, he's so grim. Yeah. He's just so dour, and she's the only person in this movie that brings charm out of him. And I've always said Christian Bale's a great actor, but the one thing he doesn't, and this is also not necessarily criticism, he is not a charismatic actor. You watch him to see the void of charisma. Like, you watch him to see, like, how you can be appealed to a character that is not appealing, but he is not like American Psycho's the closest, but he's a sociopath. But like, you don't go to Christian Bale to be like, oh, you know who's really charming? Him. No, you just go there for George Clooney or Ewan McGregor or someone. But Bradley Cooper or Michael Caine and something like that. Like, even in this movie, like Michael Caine and Gary Oldman are actors who have built their careers on charisma as well as pure acting talent. Well, Christian Bale doesn't have that, so Anne Hathaway brings that out of him, and I really appreciate that. I felt like they had a great rapport with one another.
And like the Catwoman in this, like all of the Dark Knight trilogy is based off Frank Miller's interpretation of Batman. And his interpretation of Catwoman, which is in Batman Year One, is that she was like a prostitute. Yeah. So like the idea of Catwoman being a socialite who doesn't feel the consequences of her actions is kind of
gone out the window. Yeah.
But I really
which works. Yeah.
I think Anne Hathaway. I think when I saw it, I was like, I liked Catwoman, but it was a little toned down. It was a little too toned down for me. And I think when I watched it second or third time, I was like, actually, it's kind of the only way you could introduce this character in the context of the Nolan verse, if you will.
And I think there's a specific point. Like, I think as well she's toned down for what you think of Catwoman. Like, you think of Catwoman like this crazy sex.
She's definitely less sexual,
which I thank God.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Unlike Marion Cotillard in that one specific scene where they're like, hey, she's got big titties and we've got to show him. And I'm like, Chris? But we'll get to that. But like, I appreciated she tones down once she betrays Batman. Like she realizes internally, shit, what I was doing was wrong this entire time, but it still takes her the rest of the movie to fully accept that and act on it. Like her performance from that point where the gates close and she's watching Batman get his ass handed to him, she tones it down in certain ways. Like, she still has some scenes where like, hey, Ben Mendelsohn, and like, I've got heels.
Threaten you sexually.
Which was amazing. like, you know, I like your shoes. Yeah? Like this.
Bam.
And like, I thought she brought a lot of life. And I remember people criticized Anne Hathaway a lot for this at the time. I remember people being like, she wasn't very good, or that's not my Catwoman. And there's been a period of time where, for a period of time, Anne Hathaway was like this pariah for some reason. She never did anything. And now she's popular again because she did like Ocean's 8, and everyone's like, she's sexy. And I'm like, she's always been sexy. But like, I've always thought she's a great actress. And she's amazing.
I'm a big Anne Hathaway fan. And it was actually funny because I was discussing her the other day where when you watch Princess Diaries and you watch that even when I watched that the first time around as an 11-year-old boy, and they try to tell you at the beginning of the
she's
movie
ugly. Yeah,
she's ugly because she has
never bought it
glasses
too.
and frizzy hair. I was like, get fucked.
Don't
try to tell me that
tell
she's not one of the most beautiful women.
Can I just tell you something? In the suburb that I live in, when I go home every day, I have to walk through the shopping centre, and there's no. I do because there's a wall-sized image of Anne Hathaway for this store that sells glasses, and she's wearing glasses, and they've got her posed where her body's turned to the side and her head's kind of tilted towards us, and it's the most unflattering picture of Anne Hathaway. It's like it makes it look like it makes it look like her neck and jaw are just one. Like there's no like defining separation or like outline. It just makes it look like a horse face, which is like every day I look at that and go, that's a terrible photo of Anne Hathaway. And I'm like, she's gorgeous. And this photo is like every day you say, look how ugly she is. I'm like, no, don't do this, Anne. It makes me not want those glasses, Anne. like I pointed to Bartek, and Bartek was like, yeah, like it's not flattering. Like,
I think I even said like that's Anne Hathaway.
You don't even like it's so unflattering of a photo. And then next door, the shop has one of Margot Robbie looking gorgeous, and I'm like, poor Anne, she's got done by a blonde. Like typical brunette problems here. They're just doing it. But Bartek, what do you think about Catwoman in this? Were you buzzed by her? What did you think? I mean, this is a big character that even people who aren't into the comics all have an understanding of this character, whether it be like the 60s interpretation of the cartoons or the games or whatever.
For me, it's the cartoons and the games that I mainly know her from.
And not Michelle Pfeiffer?
No, I haven't seen that.
You're missing out. Little Ryan liked that movie a lot. Big Ryan likes it too.
That's a very different Catwoman in its own right too. Very different from other.
It's a tasty Catwoman. But go on.
I definitely get the whole toned down thing because the character there is a lot more. Well, she's flirting in this as well, but it's a lot more, I guess,
overt.
Sexualized, overt. It was different. I read online that apparently a lot of people were upset that she didn't have the cat ears, but then when she had the goggles flew up, they're like, there it is.
There they are.
I thought that was great.
I thought that was clever too.
I heard people say, that's stupid. I'm like, I think it would be more stupid if she actually had cat ears.
I think at the time I didn't like it, and then
it grows on
thinking
you.
about it, I was like, that makes way more sense.
Yeah, like
she's not like Bruce who said, I'm going to be a bat, so people are scared of it. She's not like, I'm going to be a cat, so no one... so people feed me and take me in. I don't know.
I like that. I agree. I thought she did good. I thought she was
first scene too.
with taking out Bruce.
The best scene that she does is when the cops raid the bar that she's in. And,
really?
And for a moment we see not just Anne Hathaway as the actress playing Catwoman,
but Selena Kyle.
But Selena Kyle as the actress playing.
My favorite was when she took on Ben Mendelsohn. I thought that was awesome. And when the guy from Torchwood is coming in and he's like, oi, I like those shoes, and she's just kicking ass and like being evil and like cool and awesome. That was my favorite scene, with like her being Catwoman.
Yeah,
like I liked just her and Bruce at the dance. That was really good. That was like awesome. I thought that was really well done. I thought the dialogue for the most part was well done. I have problems with dialogue in general in this movie though. It's kind of like every character sounds the exact same. Like if I read to you a line from Catwoman and put on my Bane voice and didn't tell you it wasn't from Catwoman.
So that's what we're going to do at the end. We're going to read other characters' lines in Bane voice.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll be
right.
Alfred.
You be Alfred, read the whole Bane posting scene.
I won't do it now.
yeah. But like when she was saying that line where it's just like, there's a storm coming, Mr. Wayne, blah, blah, blah. And when you batten down the hatches, you'll wonder. And I'm like, Bane should be saying this at this fucking... It sounds like Bane would say this. He'll be like, there's a storm coming, Mr. Wayne. And you're like, that's my problem. Like a lot of these characters sound the exact same.
The
like,
choice of words is very similar.
They all sound like someone who's
I love the way Anne Hathaway says that to him.
Oh no, she says it. She says it like a cat.
Yeah.
She kind of purrs a little, and like she's like, really, I found her way more enjoyable this time round.
Yeah.
Um,
Like I said, the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, she wasn't out there enough. Or
Out there enough
then-
for
I
you.
guess since I
But then
haven't
in the
really
cut,
remembered
yeah.
her that much, then same.
Well,
Any other positives on this? Like, I feel like we're gonna have more negatives. It feels like, or at least I am. I don't want to harsh the buzz too much on this. Like, this is still a decent movie,
Yeah.
even though I just said I hated it a moment
And
ago.
I
Like, I
think-
can still see that this movie is trying,
It's
but it feels like the positives are like Tom Hardy and Anne Hathaway was undervalued from the audience at the time, and now maybe we look at it and it's like, is that it?
it's really
Is
weird.
that it?
there's
Michael Caine is good, but at the same
Obviously,
time, I kind of hate it.
obviously I'm going to give you more that you like about it, that I like about it. I think Michael Caine's scenes with Bruce in this are really good because the idea is Alfred is the only one other than the audience
Who
gets
knows
to
him.
see like the real Bruce.
Yeah.
Everyone knows Bruce, and especially now that we don't have Rachel. So at the beginning of the film, he's the only person that gets the real Bruce, and Bruce can kind of can have a little laugh with Alfred, but also like they can be real with each other. And I think the moment like where he tells him about how Rachel really felt is a brilliant exchange between the two characters.
Yeah.
And I think it's an important exchange.
I just
to have it
I want to feel that. I felt that the first time I saw it, and this time I saw it, it felt empty to me. That scene, like the acting, superb.
Yeah.
But the actual meat of that felt a bit empty to me.
I think
with the whole like revelation of this letter and that, I felt like the scene should have gone on longer, but
I
then
think it
they
could
had
have
to
been
cut
blocked differently.
I think it could have been
staged
differently. I think
I think
there
it-
could have been some back and forth movement. Like he's on the stairs and he's just kind of standing there, and they're not even showing any camera angles to show that Bruce is towering over Alfred in this moment
No,
of
it's-
Bruce kind of like being
it's-
annoyed, but also
meant to
Christian
be the other
Bale's
way
playing
around.
it. Yeah, but Alfred's being weak. Like he's being like, I'm vulnerable. I'm telling you this,
Yeah.
and Bruce is being like, how dare you? Like you betrayed me on a level, but Christian Bale's kind of playing it like, how dare you? You betrayed me. Like I feel like another take.
A little too
What could-
down,
I-
yeah.
I
Yeah,
would've
a little
probably-
too lifeless.
I
want more
agree.
emotion there, and that's Christopher Nolan's biggest complaint from most people is emotions
Emotion.
and hearts.
For me, obviously because I haven't seen the previous films, I don't really know who Rachel is. That was kind of like
Maggie Gyllenhaal.
So you
that was
weren't-
basically
you
like
weren't
a.
going to be invested in
It was
that
like
anyway.
a plot twist from out of nowhere about a character I didn't really know. So it's like, oh, okay.
I mean, we can all appreciate it on an acting level. Like Michael Caine's acting his
Michael
ass off
Caine
in this, but my problem with that is, I see the mechanics of it. I see Christopher Nolan and Jonathan Nolan sitting down and going, "All right, how can
We
we
need to-
manipulate the audience into feeling something? I know we need a character." And specifically an actor who the audience isn't familiar with as being really emotional. Michael Caine isn't someone you see cry all the time.
Yeah.
So when Michael Caine / Alfred cries and gets emotional, you, the audience, in turn, are going to get emotional on several levels. One, it's Alfred crying. What he's crying about, yes. And then the most important is, it's Michael Caine crying, and he's a tough guy. He's from the Italian Job. You don't
Yeah.
see Michael Caine shed a tear.
He's Austin
usually.
Powers' dad.
He's
I
Austin
think-
Powers' dad. Like, you don't see that. So it kind of feels like to me, like, as much as I appreciate the acting, I feel the manipulation of, and here's how we manipulate the audience to feel emotion over this conflict that we're going to be setting up. And yes, that's a great setup for a conflict, but then it doesn't go anywhere.
I think
It just kind of, that's it, and
Yeah.
go away, Alfred. And then Alfred is like, oh, Bruce, I let you down at the end.
And that's the last time we see him until the end, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just kind of feels like, I would love more of this, but this movie's got so many things going on
Now
that
that
you
you
can't
mention
focus
it,
on it.
Yeah.
I think it's because if you kind of had the sort of story trope of casting Alfred out, but Alfred comes back just in time to make the difference,
Yeah.
then you kind of, I think you're getting the audience going like, you know,
Yeah.
I think that scene, and I think they did enough in the previous scenes for Alfred to be like, hey, this guy's too strong.
Yeah.
Like, take it slow. And then, hey, you're going to get yourself killed. And hey, now you know the truth. I think the scene would have worked. I think blocking is a large detriment to the scene and framing, as you said, like in terms of on the stairs. I think it would
Also,
have,
I think lighting would have helped. It was just such like
it was just a plain.
it's grey.
shot. I think it would have been more powerful, perhaps, if they were in the midst of doing something and it was an unavoidable truth that Alfred had to then
Yeah.
to give. And then if you had a scene that kind of had some pace, they're moving, they're getting some stuff done, and then the break
Can
and the
you
stop.
remind me, where was Bruce going in that scene? He was going to bed? Is that
Is he
it?
going like
No,
upstairs
he's-
or something?
What was
he's
he
going-
doing?
I feel like he was going downstairs.
No, I thought he was
Oh.
going physically up.
Was he?
But where was he going in the next scene? Like, because I can't remember. Because I agree. Like, would have been
So it's
better
like, why did
if
that
he was
have to take
literally
place
about
there?
to go meet Catwoman. Was that it? Like, I feel like it would make sense if he was like, I'm gonna go meet Catwoman, or I'm gonna go I'm gonna go and fight Bane.
Yeah, you're
But
saying
I
that.
can't remember if that's like the point where Alfred does that to even drive Bruce into being more arrogant. Because that's the big thing about this movie, right? He gets his ass handed to him because he was too cocky.
Yeah.
Right, he thought he could do it. He's like, I'm back in the game. I'm Batman, kind of. But like, at the same time, I kind of wish that they played on that arrogance a bit more. Kind of just felt like, oh, he didn't expect getting betrayed, and that was kind of his cockiness, and
Like the downfall was that Catwoman tricked him.
tricked him because he trusts a
and
lady.
not that he underestimated his
Bane,
adversary.
because my biggest complaint with the Bane fight, everyone loves his Bane fight. My biggest complaint is continuity-wise, it doesn't even work with. In the third act, it's revealed, like, when he takes out Bane, if you punch his mask, it weakens him. I watched this scene, the fight scene in the first half, where Bane kicks his ass, knowing that that's a thing, right?
Yeah.
And Bruce is punching that fucking mask, and you have the sound of fist on metal, and it still doesn't make a difference in this scene for some reason. And that was driving me nuts. I'm like, so wait. Bruce was using his mind in this scene. Like, originally I was like, in my brain, I'm like, oh, he got cocky and he underestimated his strength and he didn't use intelligence. Like, if it was me, I would be like, if it was Batman, if it was me, I would go for that mask because that's obviously something that is a weakness.
Significant, yeah.
But in the scene, he does go for the mask and it doesn't make a difference for
what's-
some reason,
you know
which
what's
is
weird?
extra confusing because then in the movie, it's like, hey, it actually does make a difference. You need to try it. And then he does and it works. And I'm like, but why did it work this time and not the first time?
You know what's weird that I just thought about with that mask thing? Taking out the humor from this earlier scene on the plane when they were talking about the it will be extremely painful for you thing.
Yeah.
It feels like this whole thing of he was hitting the mask would have been playing on that of like, oh, you're going for the mask, this is going to be painful for you. But
Yeah.
then this twist at the end of like, no, that would be painful for me. It kind of seems inconsistent, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like I like the Bane fight in theory, and it has the iconic lines of dialogue about the darkness and I was born in it, you adopted it, all that kind of stuff. Which I like that interaction. I like what he's saying. I like what he's doing. But it's like the fight itself. I kind of wish we saw Bruce kind of think that he was winning, and then Bane's like, actually no. But immediately it's like they're two
clear that
boxers
he's-
boxing. Like, I wish I saw Bruce being like, oh, okay, I'll try. Like, he does one thing. I'll give him credit. He tries to throw those little smoke bombs.
Yeah.
But it doesn't even work with the way the lighting is because you don't even see any smoke come out or whatever it is. They just throw little bombs everywhere.
It
and
feels
little
like he missed.
flashbangs type.
yeah, little flashbangs, but it didn't even work. So I was like, what were you doing, Batman? It just felt like, I guess he's trying to be desperate, but I don't know, it didn't communicate across that well in the direction. Like, it's
I
in
think
framing
the
and
direction
staging.
in there as well is he throws them, and it's underwhelming for us, the audience. It's obviously underwhelming for Bane, but I think in the moment they're trying to show us that
His tricks aren't working on a guy who knows these tricks.
that it's meant to seem like weak and unimpressive.
But the problem is, in direction, it comes across as kind of weak and unimpressive. And I'm like, oh, I know what you're doing.
Yeah,
I can see what you're doing, Chris. It's just not
I
doing
think,
it.
I think a better Bane demise would have been some of the other things that Batman learnt along the way. Like,
Oh, I mean, using his brains instead of at the end he realizes he just needs to punch hard, like which he did the first time.
It's more like, you remember the payoff in Batman Begins. He says, "You never minded your environment."
Yeah.
and that's a
payoff.
the fight in which he does mind his environment. I think something similar where he's like, "Oh, the way to beat Bane isn't by
Physically
like,
punching him in the face.
It would have been I've set something up in which I am guaranteed to succeed. So more like
Yeah.
a Bane steps on the wrong thing and gets grappled and
Or he
Yeah.
lures him somewhere, something
lures him
falls
somewhere,
on him.
something like that. where it's a little more Batman outsmarted this guy. And
Kind of like the Mr. Freeze fight in Arkham City then.
Yeah,
It's a
or-
bunch of setups.
Like,
That's-
here's my big issue. Okay, we're talking about the Bane demise. We might as well talk about it because it is the worst. One of the worst aspects of this movie. It's not the worst for me, but it's embarrassing when Batman Forever figured out how to demise its villains smarter and more clever than Christopher Nolan, as did Batman and Robin. Like, it's so embarrassing that that's the case. Like, Bane just gets shot, and then they get up and go, guns are good. And I'm like, great.
Yeah, they don't really show him getting shot. They don't look at his body on the ground.
Yeah, I remember when I was in the cinema, I literally was like, he's going to get up because he's Bane and he's wearing like a big vest. I was like, oh, it's bulletproof, right? Like, it's got to be, right?
The lack of emphasis suggests that there's going to be a thing of, like, they think he's down, but then he comes back, kind of like a Terminator thing. Like, that would kill a normal person, but not this guy.
Yeah, exactly. But then he just is dead, and they're like, now Talia's the problem. I'm like, not the small woman
they
who we
move
have
on
established isn't a fighter in
But
this.
not only that, like, there's no reason why she couldn't and shouldn't have also been the fighter. A more satisfying end is the kind of physical fight that he was having with Bane ends because he outsmarts him, traps him, whatever, and then he has to have a similar type of physical altercation with Talia for that to feel satisfying as well.
Yeah.
Like, if she's the daughter of the demon,
But they
also survived in this prison, also part of this terrorist organization.
But
You've got to assume she can fight in some capacity.
But the problem is, and we're bringing up a little bit of the comics, but the problem is in this interpretation, they make it clear that Talia and Raz didn't really have a
didn't
relationship,
know each
so
other.
she didn't have these awesome set of skills. So they do at least
but
kind of.
But Bane has them.
Yeah, but Bane, but he's her bodyguard. She doesn't need to learn them because he does them. That's kind of the logic that they set up within this movie. Like, I think it would be better if we're saying what you're saying, but in the defense of the movie, it still works with what they're doing. She's the brains, she's the money, she's the, I'm going to get this organization to give money for the tunnel, like, I'm going to trick them to let me have the codes and take over Wayne Enterprises. She's that businesswoman villain, which I get, but at the same time, when you introduce Bane as the villain for nearly 3 hours of your movie, and then in 1 minute near the end, he's not actually the villain all along, it's her, you go, oh, well, she better be good. And then you go, oh, no, she isn't. And also, Bane goes out like a chump. They don't use the brains of Batman that we know he does. Like, he takes out the Joker, he takes out Ra's al Ghul, he takes out all the with Two-Face is different because it was like a heat of the moment, you got to or else, and he broke his own rule. He killed a guy on that and all that. But this, it's just like, Bane is this, like, I'm going to kill you now, and then the script's like, no, we can't let him die. He's Batman. He needs to be there so that we can get him to this point in the script. So Catwoman.
Catwoman on Batman's
Which
motorcycle.
I don't even mind Catwoman being the one to save him from Bane because she's the one who set him up to fall with Bane in the first place. But at the same time, it's just like it's there for a gotcha.
It should have also been, if Catwoman's the one that takes out Bane, it should have been a moment where Catwoman is uniquely equipped to take out Bane.
Yeah, but she uses a bat
She
thing.
uses a bat thing.
And
It
then
should have been like, again, I just have an image of Bane hanging upside down and having like, that with Catwoman's whip, like, or whatever. It
just
should have been a
also-
Catwoman unique.
It also annoys me that he just got shot. Like, they even make a joke where it's like, yeah, your no guns policy. And it just kind of feels like Christopher Nolan, like, he didn't want to make this movie. That's kind of well known. Like, he was like, I'll do Inception first, and then I'll do The Dark Knight Rises. Like, I'd rather do my own things, but okay. And it kind of just feels like Chris Nolan going, yeah, Batman and the no guns thing is kind of annoying and dumb, so...
Yeah, Ryan,
shoot him.
You worded it as a gotcha, but with how little emphasis they gave, it was more like, after the fact, it was like, hey, you didn't see that, did you? I'm like, oh yeah, he did die from that, didn't he?
I remember I walked out of the cinema and I said that. I was like, so Bane died. Weird, right? Like, you expect, like, Batman to outsmart him or something. Like, maybe Batman's image actually is so powerful that the people turn against Bane or something,
Yeah.
but the people are already turning before they know Batman's back.
And
it's like...
another strength of the Dark Knight is at the end, the excellent dialogue of, I have a feeling we're going to be doing this forever, you and I.
Yeah.
And we know as an audience that Batman and the Joker are meant to be
Yeah, exactly.
opposite each other forever. And I think if you'd had a similar ending where Bane lives and we just go, awesome, there's the opportunity for future, like we know we won't see another movie with Bane. But just the idea that the city might have to deal with someone of his caliber again is exciting for us to know.
Yeah, and here's my big thing with killing both villains, right? In the Batman Begins and the Dark Knight, both villains, or the set of villains in those things, except for maybe Two-Face, but he's kind of like a last act villain thing, right? We're talking about Central, Ra's al Ghul and the Joker. They both unfortunately learn that Batman's right about his perspective on things. Like, Ra's al Ghul has a moment where he's just like, huh, yeah, okay, and just dies. Like, he accepts what's gone on here. And the Joker is kind of, like, proven wrong, right? These two villains never learn that they were wrong. They never learn. They just die thinking that they won, which is infinitely more boring for this series of movies. Like, Talia's laughing and thinking that she's won, and she doesn't learn anything. Like, no one learns a thing. Like, Bane doesn't learn a thing. He doesn't learn that Bruce was better than him, really. He doesn't, like, they don't learn anything before they die. The other two movies, they do learn something, or they at least, at least it's proven, like, Batman's right. But in this, it's kind of like, Batman was just lucky? like, isn't that the truth? He was lucky. Like, but then they also tried to do, it was all planned all along. He had the autopilot system all done up, and you're like, haha. Like, but okay.
I have my thoughts towards the very ending as well, in terms of what would have been a more satisfying ending and kept in theme with what Nolan normally does.
Yeah.
With when Alfred had the scene earlier where he tells us how he goes to this French.
Ryan has no
place.
idea where you're going with this.
Oh, I talk about this scene a lot too.
Yeah.
Do go on. Maybe
So-
it's the same thing.
So obviously, the more satisfying ending, and in terms of just film as an art, would have been more interesting. And we see him do this with Inception. Is
It's the same thing.
we see Alfred look over, we see him smile and nod, but we don't see who he's looking at.
I've said that since day one, and no joke, Sam. I've said it to you.
I know you have.
And I remember the first time I said it, you were like, but no, I think we needed to see him because we needed to see him at the first time. So I haven't heard you say this aspect of it. So I'm so glad to know that we are both on the same page with this. I remember just
I always
saying,
felt that was an. I always felt that
it
that
should have
was
ended
an-
there.
I always felt that was an
Trust Michael.
option, and it felt weird that he didn't do it.
Trust
But
Michael
I do
Caine.
enjoy that what Nolan wanted to do is maybe not have it open and ambiguous because we're finishing it, we're done with it.
Yeah,
type thing,
but-
you know what I mean. The open ending makes us go.
Yeah,
But-
I've said that for years, and people have
But it
said
would've been a
no
better
to me
ending.
about that. And for me, my big problem with this movie, and the reason why I hated it this time around, was the thing about certain movies is, say, like, let's talk about Zack Snyder, who was in charge of Batman for a while. The worst thing about him is he thinks he's smart, but he's actually dumb. Right? Like, he thinks he's like this great philosophical genius that's like, see, symbolisms and blah, but we are like, you're dumb, Zach. Jolly Ranchers, like, all this crazy stuff. The problem with Chris Nolan is we know he's smart. For me, it feels like he knows he's smart, but he thinks we're dumb. This movie feels pandering. My intelligence was insulted for a lot of this. Like, and I've always said, like that scene at the end with Alfred seeing Batman and Batman's there, and like a lot of these scenes, it just feels like Christopher Nolan was like setting up like a meal for us, and then he put it on the floor and was like, eat off the fucking floor, you're a dumb dog to me. Like I feel like insulted at some points in this movie with like the things that I liked about it. I see it again and I go, that's so clunkily delivered, and then I realize no, it's delivered for dum-dums. And this is a movie series that is not...
To be fair, it's largely for an American audience.
Oh yeah, but the other two movies
He
were
does
more
it-
intelligent.
He does it in The Dark Knight too. There's a thing that I
But it isn't as abundant as in this movie.
There's a thing that I often dislike is when you use a flashback that you didn't need.
Oh yes.
And Nolan really likes them because he likes non-linear structures in general.
Yes, he does.
But
I mean, I think the flashbacks in Batman Begin works because that's kind of the movie.
well, the whole movie is a non-linear structure. But The biggest example, or the one that annoyed me in a film that's not Nolan, is M. Night Shyamalan in Signs. How he flashbacks to the aliens, like fingers getting cut, and we kind of like, we didn't need the flashback.
Yeah.
You had the dialogue. We clicked. I think Nolan does that. He actually does it in The Dark Knight as well.
In which moment? I'm trying to remember.
It's towards. I can't think of the moment off the top of my head. I know he does it in this one. Where he pulls it off in this one is the jacket on the young Bruce Wayne.
I disagree
I was
for
gonna bring that up.
one reason. Too much in one regard. You have the line of dialogue said in the goofy Batman voice, and I'm like, I really would have appreciated if he just said it in his Bruce Wayne voice. But okay, fine, I'll let that slide. Then we get the flashback, and then we cut to Gordon going, "Oh my God, he's Bruce Wayne."
Yeah.
It's like
But
dumb. Like, have one or have none is what I would prefer. Like, I would say just a
part that
flashback.
works. It's in
But then it's
isolation. As
ruined
that
by
doesn't-
the
oh, for
other
sure.
two aspects
But-
of it being like, I'm a boy,
But what
and then he's Bruce Wayne. Like the problem is, yes, it works in isolation, but the problem is it's
not
not
in
in isolation.
Yeah.
It's a whole
But
movie.
what I'm saying is that's the one example I have of using a flashback where the flashback is the
yeah.
dumbed down way of showing
As
what's happening.
someone who hasn't seen the other films, when I heard that line, it clicked to me that like, oh, this must have been what happened when he was a child.
Yeah.
And then when it showed the flashback, I had I was happy with that because it was like an
Yeah.
affirmation. I'm like, okay, I did get it.
Yeah,
But
you were
then
right.
he was like, he's Bruce Wayne. Now,
To be fair, he said it a little more subtly than that.
No,
But-
it's
no,
not
he
as it's not very
didn't.
subtle.
He fucking didn't.
It's probably the worst delivery he has in
How did
all
he say it?
movies.
I'm misremembering.
Bruce Wayne? But it's also...
no,
oh shit, you're right. That is how he said it.
He's
not
what's
that
worse.
bad,
He's emphasizing just the voice. He's also slightly on profile with the wind blowing through his hair, and he turns
He
and
turns
says
up
it. And
to
I'm like,
him.
Oh, shit.
Chris, that's my
In my
problem.
head, I was
know
thinking he
it's
said,
made
like,
for
Bruce
American
Wayne.
audiences, but the thing is, this franchise was built on the fact that we were more intelligent than the general audiences. This isn't Batman and Robin. This is The Dark Knight. And it feels like, for me, Chris Nolan's heart wasn't in it, right? Like, he didn't want to make this... The editing is sloppy as shit in this movie. There were scenes where I just kept going, wait, why did that happen? Like, literally, there were scenes where it's like, Bruce Wayne is sitting on the couch, cuts to Lucius, cuts back, he's standing right in front of him. I'm like, whoa, okay, now he's standing? Okay, like lots of weird continuity things that I don't notice in movies usually. Like, I'm an eagle-eyed viewer, but I let those things slide. But in this movie, you have so many things. Like, I know several times scenes you would see, it would cut in a way where you could tell a line of dialogue was there, but then they cut it away to something else. Or the way that they would edit audio was weird. Like, you know, one of the things that took me out of the movie immediately, all three movies do this.
Mhm.
Silence. You have the logo, silence, and then slowly music will crawl in, right? In this movie, it's silence, 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 and then Gary Oldman. He was a hero. And you're like, whoa, what the fuck's happening here? Why are we? And then it cuts and you're seeing it's the eulogy. And usually in a movie, that would work, say. Like Quentin Tarantino does that with some of his, where you just kind of plonk into noise. But the problem is, there's no background noises. It's just pure voice. And it makes me go, hello, I'm Gary Oldman. I just had a cup of coffee before recording this line of dialogue. You're watching me. And I'm in a movie. Like, it makes me go, he's in a sound studio recording this. It makes me like, you know, like it felt like I'm taken away immediately, but I'll let that slide. But then Bane shows up,
Yeah, Bane.
and he's got a hood on. A plane door's open, blowing air, and he just sounds like, I'm Bane, and I'm in a studio. Like, Tom Hardy's doing a voiceover performance for this.
Yeah.
Like it never felt like, and you know why? It's because the test audience was like, I couldn't understand Bane. He was muffled. So they overcompensated. So it sounds like Tom Hardy's in this sound booth recording lines of
All the
dialogue.
ADR, yeah.
And it
they
makes
ever
me
try-
go, oh, this is a movie now.
Does
We're
it-
not watching, like, we're not in the illusion. This is a movie now.
This is me not remembering. Was there ever any point where you got a sense of like where he was in a room, or was it just always over the film? His voice.
He was always like that. The closest you got was when he was at the football stadium and he just has a mic there on his mic, and you get a slight reverb of like if you put two mics together.
Yeah.
But like that's it. Like he always sounds like perfectly crisp. Like the audio, And then you notice all of this is too crisp. But then you notice it's not. It's like continuity errors. They're in the stock exchange. It's broad daylight. They go out there. It's dead of night. And they've set up in the movie that this is all taking place in 10 minutes because they're stealing this money in 10 minutes.
The tunnel during that scene was where the day and night changed, I think.
Yeah, but it's all taking place in 10 minutes because of the thing. So why is it now night? And then you go, okay, so I could try and give it a pass for being too polished, but then it's also really sloppy. You go, well, I can't. Like, I was going to say, like, although I didn't like this movie, I kind of hated it. I expected walking going, it's a technically brilliant movie. Looks gorgeous, sounds gorgeous, edited, directed, but I can't say that, honestly. I can't. I looked at it, I saw sound and editing and scenes just being too short or too long, or scenes that didn't even need to be there.
Sound-wise, there was one scene that jarred me. It was, I think it was them entering the room where Bane gets killed. Like, they're fighting outside and there's a lot of sound going on, big fight. As soon as the camera cuts to them just entering the building, all of the sound that's happening outside is just gone, and it's just them.
And it's just jarring, because you know that there should be sound out there.
Yeah, you should be able to hear it in the background, just more muffled.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, like, I really walked in thinking, I had some problems with this movie originally, but I liked it overall. And I walked in and I was really optimistic. It's like, I just watched the other two movies. I haven't seen this since the time. I like it. And then I walked out and I'm like, this movie's sloppy as shit. It feels condescending. It feels like he didn't want to do it. It feels like, there's just technical incompetence and character stuff, and the writing is terrible. Like every character sounds the same. And then they're just choices that they make. Like, I hate sometimes that the characters... Bartek, you know this. I'm going to say it. I hate when a movie is written by writers. Like, when you're watching it and you go, this is a writer's movie. This is like, hey, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's telling in his poetic dialogue about how he knows his Batman, because the writers wanted to write a scene in which they could show off how they could write a scene in which someone who's written... can tell Bruce that he's Batman, but you there going, why is he talking like this? Why is he so, like... It sounds like trailer dialogue. Like that dialogue that you have in trailers where he's just like, I knew you were the Bat, for I wore a mask, and I could see that you were wearing... And it's just like...
Yeah, it was
dude, just say I know you. Like, it just feels
it was so
weird. I know.
It was so weird that I was sitting there like, wait. He's saying he knows he's Batman, but he's saying it in such a weird way.
And it makes sense with only a few characters to speak like that. Like Bane, it makes sense for him to speak like that because he's always grandstanding. Like, he's always talking like, I'm a message, I'm an idea. And then you find out that's actually what he is. He isn't actually the brains, he's the voice of the brains, right? That makes sense. But then Alfred's speaking like that, and... What's Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character name? Blake is speaking like that, and Gary Oldman's speaking like that, and everyone's speaking the same, and you just go, what's the differentiation between these characters? The people in the fucking pit are speaking like that. That's the worst aspect of this movie. Can we talk about that fucking pit?
Yeah,
now I know all about the idea of the Lazarus pit in the comics and whatever. This isn't the fucking Lazarus pit, so I don't want to hear in the comics Lazarus pit. This is just a point in the movie where I describe it like this: the movie's going good. He gets his back broken. Cool. They're setting up the reason, like, now you have my permission to die, all that kind of stuff. And it's like the director Nolan just put a gun to the movie's head and just shot it, because it never recovers from Bruce being in this fucking pit in the ground, because you don't meet any other characters in that pit that you actually care about or remember. There's nothing memorable going on. It's like in Iron Man when Tony gets taken to a cave. You meet an interesting character, you get an understanding of what Tony's world has made the rest of the world, and then it makes sense, and it's just a boring, dirty little cave. This is just like some pit, and it's all there just for thematic messaging.
Pure written characters, as you were just saying. Yeah.
Rise. We get it. The movie's called The Dark Knight Rises. We get it's all about rising out of the ashes. You don't need Bane to say ashes 50 million times
and
in
Ryan,
this fucking movie.
When we mentioned, you and I talked about the hole in the ground,
the pit,
like
in the mysterious pit country.
You beat me to it.
Where is it?
You beat me to it. Yeah.
I thought it was in India or somewhere. I don't know. It's like Middle East.
Didn't someone mention at really early in the film something like West Africa or something?
They were like,
no.
I don't know. He was a mercenary from West Africa, but Ra's al Ghul, which is weird because he's Irish.
Oh, they were talking about Ghoul. Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah. Ghoul. What about you, Sam? What do you think about this pit? Like, this is, I can never understand. Like, I understand it for pure thematic reasons, but, like, tonally and pacing-wise, it just destroys this movie.
They got a TV down there.
Which fucking works.
No, I don't know how I feel about the pit. I think obviously at the time I'm going, they can't really have the Lazarus pit
Because it's too supernatural.
And it's too supernatural, and this is like the closest thing they could do, like amalgamate Bane's prison origin with.
I mean, they literally
the
have Raz
concept.
show up and be like, "I'm immortal, remember?"
Yeah.
And you're like, "Wait, so is this the pit?" And then it's like, "No, I'm an illusion. Fuck
Yeah.
off, bye." So even you are not sure about this pit.
No, but I definitely didn't have as strong feelings as the two of you have for it.
No, but honestly, the movie's doing well with this whole Bruce Wayne needs to learn the arrogance of his ways, but all he does is sit in this pit and cry until he realizes, I don't need rope. Like, that's all he really learns. Like, and they try to make it thematic. Like, you're a man who's wanting death and all this, but it's all, like, meaningless because it's all talk, no action. And they think the action is he jumped without rope. And when we were watching it the other night, my fiance was like, this is so dumb. I'm like, what? He doesn't need the rope. Don't you remember that? I'm like, no, I literally blocked it out because this is the most boring part of this movie. Like, I want to go back to Gotham. I want to see how Gotham's tearing itself apart, except for they don't want to show us that because, you know, they want to show empty streets with trucks driving through it. They want to show us scenes of people being dragged out of their houses, but they don't want to show us the true murderous carnage that Banes are claiming that they're going to do. But we never see it except for Exile, which is played for comedy, mainly, the whole Death or Exile.
Yeah.
I don't know, it just feels like this movie kills itself with this pit. It's like, it feels like Chris Nolan and Jonathan Nolan, the writers, were like, and David S. Goyer, let's not forget, was like, we got this thematic thing we want to put in, and what's the best way to do it? We got to do the pit, we'll do a pit, and we'll make it. It just feels like, it doesn't feel like it's actually for the plot, it feels like it's for the writers. It feels like this is the thematic heart of the movie, but no one cares. Like, when you go to that pit, you don't go, yay, we're at the pit!
I think it's in sort of the spirit of like constructive criticism is like coming up with a good alternative. I think the thematically what they're trying to do with the pit is Batman has to be put into like a lowest point, which he then has to come out of. I think what could have been a more interesting equivalent is it didn't have to be. You could have the prison that Bane grew up in.
Yeah.
Or any kind of prison. You could, in fact, throw Batman into
Arkham.
Into Arkham. Or into
Blackgate.
Blackgate and say, this is Batman, have at him.
Yeah.
And him have to... Same sort of scenario. He still has to, like, escape. Or even in the same pit scenario, if he was in a situation where no one in there wanted to help him, and he had to be his own... escape. That might have been stronger. I think the interesting thing about the rope, he needs to do it without the rope, is not only like there's no logical explanation of why doing it with the rope would make it harder.
Oh, it's because it doesn't extend long enough for you to actually reach it.
Oh, really?
That's the reason. That's why it snaps you back. Like it's not long enough for you to actually do it.
So it is a physical limitation.
So it
No,
can't
it
be
is-
done with the rope.
That's why she could do it, because she didn't do it without the rope. It wasn't, but the movie tricks you by making you guys think
It's a mental
thematically
thing.
it's a
Yeah.
mental thing,
Yeah.
but realistically it's because the rope is too short.
So that's not clear enough.
There's a clear mathematical reason why it's the
I
problem.
picked up on that immediately. I was like, oh, okay, like, because you see it, and I'm like, but the movie's using that flowery writer's dialogue.
But it doesn't look like the rope stops him from getting there. It looks like he doesn't get there and he falls and the rope catches him. I don't think there's
No, I think there's a little bit of a...
To be fair, I think I remember the first jump looking a little bit too pitiful. So maybe it was the rope holding him
but
back.
he just had his spine punched in, which made you feel good, right, Bartek? For someone who has a spinal issue right now, if I punched your spine into place, will it work?
Who knows,
Yeah, the point I think I was like trying to make as well is that that's more of the whole, you don't need a rope, you need to jump without the rope, and you need to learn to jump without your safety net, if you will.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel like it's a Bruce arc. It feels like that's a Dick Grayson thing.
Yes.
Because he has a lot of quotes about you'll never fly if you're not willing to fall, and like those kind of
Yeah, I know that they're trying to tie it in. I just don't know. I think the pit doesn't work because you don't meet anything there that makes it interesting. Like, the other characters there, I don't know their names. I know one's a doctor, and I thought he was blind. Is he? The doctor guy? He just looks like he's got glazed over eyes. He's always looking in one direction. And I was like, is he blind or what? I don't know. They're like, we punished him for what he did to Bane. I'm like, is he blind? I don't know. And we'll never know because we never got to know that character.
Yeah,
The pit exists so that way we could give a reveal that, Talia was in the pit.
Yeah.
Ooh, and you're like, ooh.
I think it would have been cooler if Batman was fine, like he didn't have a broken back and he's put in the pit.
But they need to because it's in the comics and it's Bane's iconic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if he didn't have a broken back, he wouldn't have needed help.
Exactly. But I don't know. I just feel like the pit is the pits of this movie. Thank you. I just said it. Yep, I was holding on to that the whole time. It's the pits. I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of things that they just didn't do right. Like, every character is stunted in this movie. Like, they're picking up. Oh, now Gordon's in the hospital for pretty much the most of the movie doing nothing. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, we'll give Blake a chance. Picking up. He doesn't really do much. Mm. He gets his ass handed to him every time, and yet Bruce is still like, you're the guy. Like, I don't understand why he's the guy. It makes more sense if Gordon's the guy, if anything. Like I know it wouldn't make sense either.
Gordon also becomes Batman in some of the
So why not Gordon?
stuff,
Like, you're the guy, Blake. Because you are an orphan. The orphans on the bus need to be told that they're going to fucking die from the priest. This movie is hilariously dumb at points, though. Like, I love... There's this editing scene. I don't know if you saw this. Like, if you notice this. Batman meets Miranda... Bruce Wayne comes back. He meets Miranda Tate and Catwoman? And they are, like, in the homeless shelter or wherever they are. And he's like, yeah, I'm back, or whatever. And then they go out and they... kick some ass, and then they're like, okay, let's separate. We're gonna go here. And then literally the next scene is Batman helping Gordon on the ice. And he literally says to Gordon, do you know where Miranda Tate is? I need to see her. Literally, you just came from seeing her. Like, in context of how we just saw the scenes compiled, you just saw her. What do you need to see her about? And we don't find out why he needs to see her. We don't. We just go, and there's shit like that. Like, why is it edited that way? Why is it edited where it's like, I just saw Miranda, and now he's like, where's Miranda? You should know. You just saw her. You just told her where to go. Go there. But instead, you need to help Gordon on the ice and light up the bridge and be like, ooh, moody. And Bane's like, it cannot be. I'm shocked. Like, Bane seems really shocked. Like, too shocked.
I think it's fair to be shocked. Like,
this is like...
I would not expect a man with a broken back to climb out of a pit and somehow make his way across
No, I'll give it that. I just think it was... I laughed.
Bane was very shocked when he saw that fiery bat symbol that was definitely made by Batman.
No, I don't know. I just feel like I have a lot of things to say negatively, but Bartek and I were talking last night. Now, my DVD copy of this movie...
Oh, I was going to transition to this.
kept the same aspect ratio. I just have a DVD. I didn't buy a Blu-ray. I saw it in the theater, though, and I thought I had a false memory of the aspect ratio changing a lot. But then I watched it last night, and it stayed the consistency. But then Bartek...
Yeah, I was basically asking Ryan, like, hey, about this aspect ratio thing, because it kept changing when I was watching the film.
Yeah.
And I'm not normally one to notice that, but it jarred me so much throughout the film. I had to... this happens when we do the mystery box sometimes. Like, Ryan will notice something weird, it's like, oh, shit, editing or whatever, and I'd be like, wait, something happened just there, but I don't know what. And Ryan would either have to explain it or we have to rewind so I can see it. I kept having to rewind this film to see what happened, but it was just the aspect ratio suddenly changing. And there was one point where it changed for literally one shot, then it changed back, and it was like, okay, did we need to change it just for someone entering a building?
Why did he do that?
I
understand when Michael Bay does it, oddly enough. He does it a lot, but it actually makes sense because he has to adapt for the CGI he's got on screen. Like, he's actually, even though it's sloppy, it still makes sense. But why did Nolan do it?
I don't think there is a good reason to change aspect ratio at all, even to accommodate
Yeah, like
CGI.
like here's the thing. I don't want to slag too much. I want to slag on that a bit because it goes with the editing and the audio mixing and the writing, and it makes you go. So technically, other than this movie being lit, and we even complain about some of the lighting and being in
well-acted,
focus.
yeah.
No, technical. Like that's performance, but just pure technical on the direction side of like the camera's in focus,
Acting comes
lit.
under...
I know, but we already said the acting great.
Yeah.
Other than the acting being good and it being lit at the right times and in the camera in focus, is there any technical aspect of this that's actually brilliant?
Yeah, we did say the sound editing is...
The music
sloppy
is
times.
overbearing at times. Like, literally, Alfred's crying and you're hearing this... Is it Hans Zimmer who does this?
It's, I believe...
Yeah,
it's Hans
his
Zimmer.
music is like... Dun, 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 and, like, Alfred's crying. Or I noticed when they took music out to be more dramatic, they're like, and for the Bane fight, no music here. We're just going to have bare... knuckle noises to really highlight that he's hitting the fucking mask. And I'm like, oh, so is there any technical aspect of this, like, really, once you start thinking about it, other than it looks nice visually? Because I'm legitimately shocked. Like, I walked into this thinking, Christopher Nolan's, like, a brilliant technical director. Like, you may have criticisms about his characters or emotional heart, but you can't walk away not going, the technical aspects of this movie were brilliant. Like Kubrick, you know? Like he often gets compared to Kubrick, but, like, this movie, technically, I thought was incompetent for a large majority of.
In the flashback with him as a child, Gordon giving the coat, they filtered the image.
I love you.
I
love you because I wrote that in my notes. I was like, yeah, they filtered it so that they could show you that it's old. Now, Sam, you're a huge Robin fan.
Yeah.
You got one tattooed on your leg.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I first met you. I walked into a university room and I saw just a leg. Like this leg with a tattoo of a Robin upside down.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to talk to this guy. So you loved Robin in this, right? Big fan?
I actually...
Loved him?
I enjoyed him. And here's why. Like, this is something that no one would enjoy if they were not already a fan of the Robin in the capacity that I am. I know a lot of diehard Robin fans would be like, that was shit. Where's Robin? We want a real Robin. But essentially his character is an amalgamation of the three main Robins.
Yeah. You
And
can tell that by the name even.
Yeah, exactly. And I know it's sort of like ham-fisted, but I enjoyed seeing aspects of each of those characters I have otherwise not had a
Big thing
accurate live-action interpretation of.
I mean, the Robin in the 60s one was accurate to the one from the 60s.
Oh, yeah, the comic
but-
at the time. Yeah, sure.
But that's changed.
But I also don't like the 60s Batman, so...
That's unfortunate.
It's, like,
It's brilliant.
It doesn't click with me anyway, so...
It is.
Regardless
it
of
is
the
pretty brilliant.
accuracy of Burt Ward as Robin, it doesn't do anything for
They had
me.
a nice little homage to Burt Ward in this. The football player that survived had
Yeah.
Ward written on him. I was like, oh. It would have been better if you got Adam West as the mayor, but whatever. Can I just say one thing about the mayor? It really, if you've watched The Tick with Patrick Warburton,
No, I have to interrupt you. You could not have had Adam West as the mayor in this.
why not?
No fucking person on earth would take this movie seriously if Adam West was the mayor in The
I
Dark
know.
Knight Rises.
No, you could.
Not even with his
No, you could not
flowery
have.
writers
There's
dialogue.
absolutely no way that
I
could
know
have
because he's the
happened.
mayor and Family Guy, but here's the thing.
Not even that, just because he's
Hold-
Adam West.
Hold on a second. All right, you've just admitted you didn't like the 60s show.
Mm-hmm.
I've been watching the 60s show. I love... He's my favorite Batman,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not including the animated stuff, just live action, right?
Yeah.
He's the best one.
Mm-hmm.
And Adam West was a brilliant actor. He was offered James Bond.
Mm-hmm.
He refused it because he didn't think an American should play it. And then
Yeah.
they gave it to an Australian anyway. So he was a brilliant actor,
Yeah.
but he got typecast and put in a box in a time in which if you played superheroes, the Batman curse,
Yeah,
if
for sure.
you were locked in there. But he was a great comedic and dramatic actor. And Christopher Nolan isn't afraid of putting people into his movies that were unconventional choices. Michael Caine isn't someone that you would go would be Alfred. Most people, sometimes me even, goes, that's not Alfred. Michael Gough is Alfred, or Alan Napier's Alfred. But like, or Jeremy Irons, like, you know, that kind of thing. But I feel like, yeah, it's Adam West, and, you know, he has a persona, and he made a career in the end of his life, luckily, of getting resurgence in people's lives, being himself, or being a version of himself. But he suffered for being Batman. He was a up-and-coming actor, and he took a show that reinvigorated Batman. If it wasn't for the 60s show, Batman probably still
for
wouldn't
sure.
be alive or existing
Yeah.
in the way it is. So I legitimately mean it is a little bummer that you didn't get an Adam West in any of these movies, even in a small role. And I don't think you can just be like taken out because, oh, it's Adam West. Oh, I won't take it seriously, because he was a dynamic
I'm
actor,
not-
and Christopher Nolan
I'm not
is always going
faulting-
against the grain of choosing people that you wouldn't usually choose as these
it's
roles.
not a fault of Adam West that it couldn't be taken seriously. I
Yeah.
didn't mean to. I didn't mean
Yeah.
because of Adam. It's like, unfortunately, because of the audience's understanding of Adam West and who he was at the time this
Yeah.
film was made, they wouldn't have been able to take him seriously, especially specifically as the mayor. A smaller cameo.
Yeah,
could have
I just
easily
use that
been
as an
accommodated.
example because it's a powerful position, and it
Oh,
would have
yeah,
been
for
nice to
sure.
see him in a powerful position instead of like homeless man. But what I'm saying is like, yeah, Adam West. But that's the thing. We think that, but then Adam West, for a whole generation of people watching the animated Batman series, touched their hearts
with the
Grey Ghost
as the Grey
episode,
Ghost, right?
yeah.
And that's that's kind of thing. Like,
Oh, for sure.
he
Like
could
I
have been
said,
in
it's
this
not
movie
it's not of
as
Adam
as
West's
a
fault.
No, and I just made that off
It's
the cuff.
the- it's
What
the
funny-
perception, you're
Here's the
saying, yeah.
funnier thing: the actual mayor who does play the actual guy who does play the
Mayor
mayor.
Guyliner.
Yes, that's actually what he looks like though. But he plays a character in the Patrick Warburton live action version of The Tick called Batman Well.
Yeah.
And every time I see him in The Dark Knight and in this, I'm like, hey, it's Batman Well in a Batman movie. And I bet you Christopher Nolan knew that. Like, he's like, I gotta get Batman Well. Like, I don't know. I think that this movie, like, there's a lot of interesting stuff. Why I brought up the Robin is that's the most divisive thing, right?
Oh, for sure.
Here's my big problem with the Robin thing. I like him as a character. I was oblivious to his amalgamation to all these different Robins because I'm not familiar with most of them.
Same, yeah.
But here's my big problem is, at the end, they're like, your real name is Robin because you, the audience, are dumb and need to be told he's a Robin. We couldn't just pick that up by our own volition.
Yeah, that was another unnecessary
and
addition.
it weakens his character. And I've said, like, and I don't know comics, has that character been picked up in the comics?
No.
And he won't, because you literally name him Robin at the end.
Yeah.
And it ruins him.
So he can't be Robin in the same capacity, in the same way, if that's his real
That's
name.
his real name. Like, but
No,
they
I
instantly
agree with
cripple the ability to make this character. He's an interesting character that could be transformed into something in the comics, like in the new Spider-Man in the Spider-Verse. I won't reveal too much, but there's a certain interpretation of a character that
Yeah.
isn't in the comics or that I'm aware of that will surely be picked up and made into something awesome. And they could have done that with him, but they instantly cripple it by being like, hey, audience, you're fucking dumb. He's Robin. You get it? And there he is going on the little thing. Guess what? He's rising.
But I
End.
still enjoyed that they had, regardless of whether it was Robin,
Yeah.
that they had a character that serves the purpose that Robin does for Batman.
I appreciate that. I thought they did it really good. I just think they did him dirty at
Oh,
the end. I think,
definitely.
but that's the
They
problem.
dogged him at the
They
end.
dog everyone in the end.
Yeah.
The only one they don't dog is Alfred, and even that we were like, they need to cut.
Yeah.
And like everyone gets dogged. Bane gets dogged in the end. Talia gets dogged in the end, like, or dogged at all because her character's weak as shit in this movie. Like I made fun of Marion Cotillard. She's a great actress. And I'm not saying that she couldn't play it. Just make her a character that isn't like the I'm hiding what I really am character. Because that's kind of what everyone's doing in this. It's like we're hiding from the audience so that we got that gotcha moment. And since it's the final movie, the gotcha reveal is even more hollow. Because it's not going to follow up to anything.
It's going to have no significance.
It's going to have...
later.
And I just was curious because you're a big Robin fan, and I was just like, curious.
I'd be one of
Would
the-
you want to see that character adapted into the comics and a new form of a Robin?
Well, there's so many Robins now that
Yeah.
I probably feel no. I've like, even if they'd done it like at the time straight afterwards,
Yeah.
like they've done with other characters, I probably would have been like, I don't think it could have worked because he's also an amalgamation of those other characters. If he was from the scratch, like nothing about him is the same as any of the other Robins, then possibly. But because he's essentially just a mix of those three main
Yeah.
characters, he's probably not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just think the movie is just like, you're dum-dums. Like, Bane, go out like a chump. Catwoman and Batman get together, and it's obvious that they get together. That's my big problem is, although I like their chemistry, I didn't understand why they liked each other fully. Like when he gets fucking his back broken because of her, and then he's just like,
I understand
hey.
why he likes her, because
See,
no matter what she does to you. That's Anne Hathaway.
No, yeah, but I get that. I understood that. But, like, let's be honest. Like, I literally didn't understand why he went back to her other than she is Catwoman and he is Batman and they do this in the comics and in the
She
shows.
did the right thing in the end.
No, but when he got his back broken and he comes back to Gotham, he goes immediately to her.
Yeah.
Why?
Because she's the only one that can...
Yeah, but he doesn't know that she's not an evil person still.
No, he
other
don't-
than the movie
he
must
doesn't.
have her not be for him so that the movie can continue on.
He
But-
doesn't know that she won't go straight to Bane. That's
Yeah.
valid. But
Like, so it makes me go, but they play it like, oh, he loves her. Like he's all smiley and he's all like, hey.
I feel like it's more that he hoped. Like, he
Maybe-
hoped that he could go to her and it was going to turn out right. It was a huge, like...
It's a leap.
It's a massive gamble if that's what he
Yeah,
did.
and he did that the first time and it cost him his back
Oh,
and
for
the
sure.
pacing of the movie.
Maybe I'm misremembering, but didn't he have a line of dialogue when he saw her after coming back to the city, saying that he understood why she did it, and like it was fear or something like that, and he
Yeah.
understands that she would go against Bane.
Batman, it's actually very, like, common that, like, when the average person does a crime, Batman can and does sympathize with their reasons for
Yeah,
doing it.
and I've seen
I
that.
read
It's
that
brilliant.
apparently with Christopher Nolan, he had like a word that's like the main theme of each of these films in the trilogy, and this one was fear. So maybe
Not
that-
rises? Says it a
No.
lot, not ashes. Are you sure?
I thought fear would have been...
Well, rise
Batman
above your
Begins.
fears, I guess. it would be.
Is there anything else you want to mention about this movie?
Ryan, we've talked about a lot of characters, but you haven't talked about the one that you wrote a fan fiction of.
Okay, we're going to talk about Fredericks. So, there's this one character in the movie that when I saw in the cinema, I giggled very much, and I giggled throughout. There's a scene in which Bane needs some executives or needs people from the Wayne Enterprises to activate the bomb, basically. And there's this elderly man who's played by Christopher Nolan's uncle. I think he's John Nolan. And he clicks his pen just like he's lifted up from a piece of paper like he was doing work while these terrorists have been here the entire time. Love it. He's in the Batman Begins as well, by the way. He's like, the apple has fallen very far from the tree, Mr. Wayne. Like, he's all arrogant, but also cool. He clicks his pen, puts it in his jacket pocket to volunteer to be the executive that goes. And the way he does it, or the way it's edited, and the fact that he's writing when these terrorists are literally there, they let him keep working. It's the amazing thing. I've always imagined from day one, it's in my brain like this. Did he think he was volunteering for something else? Because then he gets a gun
very
pointed at him,
casual.
and he was like, "Whoa, a gun?" Like, and I go, did he think he was volunteering to get the Chinese food? He was like, all right, I gotta go to Madame Ling's, get the Szechuan chicken. And I said all this stuff after I saw the movie, and Connor and I and Rachel, we built up this legendary character that would exist on and become the mayor of Gotham and run around thinking that he's trying to get Szechuan chicken and accidentally becomes the new White Knight of Gotham. Like, he drops some menus and a bank robber falls over them, and then the press take photos, and he's like, he's the hero we need right now, and all that kind of stuff. And I just find him amusing. And one of our friends had a costume party, and I hated the party's idea of dress up as just a character you like. I'm like, no, I like you to be more specific. So I purposely dressed up as this fucking guy and annoyed everyone at that party because I had to intensely explain what I was.
Didn't you have
And then I handed out pictures of myself, posters of myself running for mayor. And I also annoyed Sam because I had a Green Lantern ring on and I refused to explain why until the very end of the night, in which I'm like, oh, well, in my mythos, he's such a good guy that the Green Lantern
He's
Corps went out and
chosen.
signed up him. And I'm like, yay! And I remember you were like, no, it doesn't work like that. You gotta have it like this. And I'm like, well, for Fredericks, things don't work the same.
Fuck,
that-
Ryan, you're such a big guy.
And it became a big thing of, at first it was get coffee, but then it became get Chinese, and then it became get Szechuan chicken. And I wrote a comic book for our friend whose birthday party it was, and I made him like a few pages of this comic called The Szechuan Case, Gotham's Next White Knight, The Szechuan Case, in which he's looking for Szechuan chicken. And he's going around to all the different villains, asking them where the chicken is. And then the Joker had the chicken all along, but it's actually in his office the entire time. He just didn't look properly. And like the last line is, for once the Joker told the truth. And I'm like, give him this potent importance that he doesn't have, and he's just like, and now I may rest. Like, and he's eating this Szechuan chicken.
And how's the writing in the comic?
Better than this. I will say there was one genuine laugh I had in this movie. Scarecrow was good.
Yeah.
I've always felt that I wanted more Scarecrow in these movies.
When I was reading the trivia, it's like Jonathan Crane was really good. I'm like, who? Where was he?
He was the judge.
He was the judge. Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't know that.
I wouldn't have known. Yeah, I had to look it up.
It also doesn't make. I mean, I know.
I was like, Liam Neeson was there, but where was he?
He's in every film.
He's in every film, being less interesting as they go.
His Dark Knight Rises one is better than his Dark Knight cameo.
No, it's because it's funny.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
But they're still each.
But his
as
character's also given
mundane.
more importance.
Yeah,
like,
but it's
in the
for
big
the
scheme
sake
of
of
things, he doesn't really have importance.
It's sake for a joke. My thing is, I know, like, he used to be a psychologist that used to go to the courts all the time. Yeah, but I just don't believe that this guy who's all like, I want to do fear gas and run around the city terrorizing people, will be like, I want to sit here and play judge every day. Like, I was like, oh, I want to see scenes of him running around fear gassing people, but instead we were like, it's a joke, and that's fine. He's not the thrust of the movies. He's a little Easter egg for those who have seen the movies. And for Bartek, he's there as some guy, and he has a funny line about, like, death by exile.
He looked interesting, so I remembered him, and I was like, oh, that was a villain from first film.
You know, and stuff like that. Anything else of reference we want to mention? Anything about the Dark Knight Rises? He rose and he fell. I mean, it is interesting that this has parallels to the Batman movie from 1960s, in which Batman, it's a hard day to get rid of a bomb. That's the thing. Like, this movie's so goofy.
Some days you just can't get rid of
Yeah,
bombs.
some days it's like it's so goofy. Like, this movie's like, not the orphans, not the bomb. Like, it's like,
The first pose that Aidan Gillen makes is pretty good.
yeah. You want to discuss that?
The CIA.
I love that you know the actor's name as well. Like,
I had to look it up, but
but I love that you walked in. Someone who's not watched Game of Thrones, which he's primarily known for at this point. I used to know him for I can't remember the show's name off the top. The Queer as Folk. I remembered him in that. And then in Game of Thrones, he's like, I'm bad guy. I'm like, no, you're not. You're just a gentle gay man.
no, I didn't know the actor's name until yesterday.
Yeah. Well, you liked his pose of being the CIA. Can we talk about what is this whole thing about Bane posting? Like, I tried to read it. I just don't understand why that specific scene is the one that was held up as this meme thing when there's so many other hilariously weird moments.
For me, it's a weird thing of years and years ago, I can't even remember what page this was. I liked a page on Facebook that was posting about something random. It was probably like an anime page or something. And then I forgot about the page, and then many years later, some admin on that page just started randomly posting things about this CIA character.
Who's in one scene. And like all these memes. He was the Fredericks for the internet.
And quoting him constantly. I'm like, who is this guy? And then I realized, oh wait, he was in that film I saw, Dark Knight Rises. And apparently there's just a huge fandom about this character, building him up to be this like Chuck Norris level guy, and his awkward dialogue and poses and acting and slurring of his lines.
And here's the thing, he's a brilliant actor. Like, not just in Game of Thrones, but in general. So it makes me wonder what happened here, because there's some actors who are genuinely brilliant and they're turning in weird performances, and you're like, why?
I guess this was the internet's version of like the writing in this film, like that you're having.
Because the whole thing is like, will it hurt if I pull it off? Yes, it'll be extremely painful.
If I
You're
pull
a
it-
big guy. For you.
He's just randomly interjecting, you're a big guy, and then there's a whole debate about like, is the for you related to it's gonna be painful, or is it the you're a big guy thing? So are they like into each other? I'm a big guy for you.
People are misinterpreting that the for you is like you're a big guy. Yes, in comparison to you, little man.
No, for you.
Yeah, a big guy.
For you.
Like, oh,
It's like, hey, Ryan, I'm a big guy for you.
For you, I'm a big guy, but I'm 5'9" on a sunny day.
By comparison, well, the 5'9" on a sunny day is how I refer to myself as well. 5'9" on a warm day.
There was a post I saw someone saying that like the reason why he you know the gun thing where you're gonna push him out of the plane. The reason why he did that was because he would survive a fall, and he just thinks that's what everyone could do. So he makes sure to kill them before throwing them out.
Yeah.
And they're saying like, oh, there was one survivor on the plane. It was CIA.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. Since he doesn't, he introduces himself as I'm CIA. They call him CIA.
That's his name.
Yes.
Man, this movie's full of golden gem moments. I watched an interview with Marion Cotillard, and she was like nearly weeping at the fact that they kept that taken of her dying. She was like, I don't know why he did me like. She actually said, I don't know why he did me like that. And I'm like, oh, Marion, I don't know either. You're a great actress, but they did you dirty there. Like, death, like, ugh.
Yeah, it was awkward.
So embarrassing.
She closed her eyes, obviously, dying. She bobbed her head in the direction it wasn't going to fall in. It bounced into the direction it was going to fall in. So it was like, it was so artificial. And I can see what she means by like, oh, why'd you keep that take in
There's like
where
50,
I bounced in the wrong
50 takes, and yet you kept that in. I don't know. Christopher Nolan looks like a Bond villain. Maybe he is in real life. I don't know. Maybe he was like, I shall burn them all. I'm the one who rises to the top. Interstellar's my next movie. All right. I think that's pretty much it about The Dark Knight Rises. I think we rose to the challenge of talking about it.
I know you're a big Ben Mendelsohn fan. Is there anything you want to say about him?
He was great. I was bummed that he wasn't in it more or had really any importance. It was just kind of like, oh, neat. He's an actor who's now very prevalent in movies, and this was the stepping stone movie, honestly, for him. Like, this is a big movie, and I appreciate it for that regard, but he doesn't do anything of real importance. He's a slimy little prick, but at the same time, he kind of is just this guy who appears out of nowhere for this movie. We've never seen him before.
Yeah.
Never heard about him before. And it feels like in the movie we should. I was like, who is this guy?
They mentioned his name a lot.
Is he on the board?
No,
because he's there on the board and he's acting like,
yeah,
I've got you out of the board. But then it felt like he was his own company.
I think in a plot summary I read, they said that like he and the Wayne Foundation were merging or something.
There was a merger happening.
Right, and
so in
again, I read that in the summary.
The other thing is like, I don't mind not knowing more about him, because like the idea of like,
but he plays
there's
such
just so many of these slimy business characters in DC and Gotham specifically. Like, there's so many characters you could have that fill that same role.
I mean,
he could be Simon Stagg for all we know.
I mean, Rutger Hauer filled the role in the first one as the thing. But I think my big thing is, when I say that, is it seems like he matters intensely to the plot, and when they kill him off, it seems like that big crescendo moment, but it's like, oh, okay, he's gone. We didn't know him. He was Ben Mendelsohn, so you assume you should know.
I guess he was a face of the whole fuck the rich plot of the film.
But he wanted to be,
I also just feel like we just understood that he was a stepping stone. And that he was never meant to be more than that stepping stone for Bane to get something he needed.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I didn't care too much. Like, I was just like, he was good there. It was a stepping stone for Ben Mendelsohn's career. Like, it would have been neat to see him do more because he is such a great actor. But, you know, it's not the priorities of the movie. But I do love seeing him there, and I always forget he's in this. He does a really good American accent in this as well. Usually, when he does an American accent, his lisp comes in. That he has like an actual speech impediment. But in this, it didn't come in. So I don't know. Maybe just favoring of editing and stuff.
You'd probably get in Blood. Is it Bloodlines?
Bloodlines.
His lisp is less pronounced in that when he does his American accent.
It's really pronounced. It's a little pronounced when he gets nervous, and that kind of adds to the weakness of that character. But either way, we could do a whole Ben Mendelsohn podcast.
Yeah.
Season 1, Bloodline. Watch it. Just ignore the other 2 seasons and do not. Just ignore the last 30 seconds.
I didn't bother with the third because the second one was just not.
Spoiler alert for Bloodline. It just ends with a cut to black.
Sopranos.
Yeah, but Sopranos earned it. So, we rose.
The majority of the Sopranos audience doesn't feel that way.
No, but it earns it way more than Bloodline. All right, we rose to the challenge.
The white guys rose.
We rose all the way to the top. We'll rise to putting a nice promo for another podcast in, because after all, we want to expand out. We want to get get in contact with some people, kind of let you, the listening people, kind of flourish and get some podcast recommendations from us, and here are some others. If you're a podcast yourself and you want to get in contact with us about maybe coming on or doing a promo or just getting in contact, we're Spit and Polish Presents. You can find us on Facebook or Twitter. We got an email, spitandpolished@gmail.com. Of course, you, the listening people, can email us or contact us about movies you would like us to cover, or things that you have to say about what we said about movies, or death threats. I don't know. I'm dead until I record, so your threat will not work unless I read it on air.
It'll go unheard.
No, Bartek will be screaming in fear about it. Like,
whilst he's in pain.
I'm in pain and afraid.
If you follow the Facebook one, what I really like the questions you guys are asking lately about what are the best films by certain directors and just
Or actors and
yeah,
stuff, yeah.
just getting on there and chiming in with something and then seeing what other people say.
Yeah,
It's
we
a
just
good
talked
little-
about the Coens.
Yeah, the Coen brothers. Yeah, was it last night? I
yeah,
chimed in with
recently.
what my favorite Coen brothers films were, and
Yeah. Do you have anything to plug? You're
I'm-
Mr. Comics.
yeah,
Comics?
I mean,
You got a comic?
I'm a bit into comic books. I don't know if you got that from the rest of the podcast. Yeah, I've got a comic book out on Comixology if you like reading them online. Otherwise, you can follow us on Facebook at Immortal Comics. We're also on Instagram, immortal.comics.
Yeah.
And I just got Twitter, but I haven't put anything on
Well,
it.
you'll have to follow us.
Yeah, Comics Immortal on Twitter.
Well, I'll make sure to put all that information to our
Absolutely,
description and
yeah.
on our social medias.
Thank you very much.
Let's play the promo.
Hey guys, my name is Sammy P and I have a great new podcast all about the weird world of online confessions. Each week I read 4 of these odd confessions to great guests, which have so far included Sam Neill, Judith Lucy, Stephen Curry, Sarah Snook, Wendy Harmer, Tony Martin, and many more. The podcast is called Confessions of the Idiots, and it's part of the Nearly Podcasting Network, available on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm sure you could even request one at a party. Just walk up to the DJ, request Confessions of the Idiots, and see all of your friends try and dance to a podcast. Anyway, I can't take up any more of your time because you have at least 42 of these to catch up on. There you go, guys. Enjoy. Goodbye.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Confessions of the Idiots with Sam Peterson.
Oh, wow, what a great promo. Loved it. It was my favorite promo so far.
I love put in the podcast name.
I love blank. Don't you worry about blank. Let me worry about blank.
I'll record all the names that I can think of and you just edit.
Now, to be serious for a second, Bartek is choosing the next episode's movie. Now,
shit.
first movie he chose was Cannibal the Musical by the
Yes.
guys who did South Park. I then followed up with masterclass filmmaking from the Coens, and then listening people like, hey, do auteur director Nolan. What's Bartek going to hit us with?
Ryan, there's been a pattern with these 3 films that we've done, and with this 4th film, the one that I'm picking, I wanted to break that pattern.
Yes.
And the pattern...
It's going to be in black and white.
No. The pattern is very simple. Ryan, you've seen all 3 of these films. And I felt like,
So it's going to be a film Ryan has felt, but not used his eyes. to
I've
see.
tasted it.
He's tasted. It's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
I wanted to pick a film that I think Ryan hasn't seen, because I've mentioned this
I
film
can't
a few
wait to shatter him.
times.
Go on.
I've mentioned it a few times, and I think you haven't seen it. And I picked this film before I heard that we were doing The Dark Knight Rises, and I thought, like, oh, funny, we're picking something related to Heath Ledger.
Okay.
The film and it's an Australian film, even.
Okay.
The film that I've picked is Two Hands.
Two Hands. Yes, I've not seen this movie before, but I've been criticized for not seeing it, so I will no longer be. I will have seen it by the next episode, hopefully.
Okay, good. My biggest fear was that you've seen it in the time since I've last mentioned it.
The only thing more satisfying than having successfully picked a film that Ryan hasn't seen is if you manage to pick a film that he said he has seen but hasn't seen.
I thought you were going to say one that I
like
hate.
Exposing him as having fraudulently
Yeah.
seen a film.
I don't think I've done that, honestly.
I don't think you would be bothered by someone picking a film that you hate. You would still happily discuss and destroy the
Well,
film.
that's the point, yeah.
You say that.
What's a film you would hate to discuss on
No,
this podcast?
no,
'Cause that'll be
I've
the
n-
only thing I come back for. I will only come back for things that Ryan will hate.
Hydrosphere.
Well, that's the one that Sam recommended.
Did you watch it? No, but you want
my
it.
God,
It's on our
so
list because
bad.
you recommended it.
I want you to
It's
come on it.
so bad.
We're going to come on, right?
It's got more than one name.
You
I
got
can't
to
remember
Malcolm
what the
McDowell. Is it? We got to have you on it, right? What was it called? It's
I-
like 99 Leagues in the Hydrosphere or something
other-
weird.
its other name is definitely sounds more.
It's like a
nautical.
4-digit number and then like 3 words or
Yeah.
something.
It's
Well, we're not doing
terrible.
that. We are doing.
Well, it's on the list,
They're
so.
doing that eventually. Sam, you got to come back on for that though.
If you,
Well, no, his-
I don't
his
know if I'll
caveat was-
survive being on that. It's
His caveat
so
was
bad.
something that you hate, right?
You'd
Not
have
he
to
Well,
hate-
dude-
you would, yeah. Obviously, you would
I've
love
already
to have me on
have
something that
I
hate.
foreshadowed Star Trek Into Darkness lately? I don't know. That is the movie I hate the most, by the way, or at least
Episode
preferably.
5, Star Trek Into Darkness.
No.
Six,
All
then.
right, well, that's it. Make sure, in the meantime, to actually watch Two Hands, the Heath Ledger movie.
Do I have to?
Yeah, so that way you're all informed as we talk about it next episode. Like I said, we're on the social medias of Facebook and Twitter. You can follow us there, Spit and Polish Presents. You'll find us on all the podcast platforming sites available. Reviews, ratings, all appreciated. But I think to end this episode, we all need to do our Bane impressions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do we
Get up
have a
some
line?
dialogue.
Oh.
Get up. Here's what you do. You get up the dialogue on IMDb, and we'll take a line that's not Bane's, and we'll each do.
Well,
Fine.
you grab your phone because I
big
turned
guy.
my thing off and it takes ages to turn on. Yes.
I failed you, Master Wayne.
Yes, you think you merely ordered the Szechuan chicken, but I made it.
volunteered to get the Szechuan chicken.
I made it. Bought the ingredients. I
Oh,
did.
say, can you see by the dawn's early
It's hard not to
light?
use Bane lines for Bane though. Like,
No, that's
like-
something he complimented. What a lovely voice.
Wait! I got it. You're a big guy.
I said that already.
Oh fuck! I wasn't
Yeah,
paying attention. I was
you
too
did.
busy saying Szechuan chicken, which is really hard to say in a Bane voice. You do it.
Where are the quotes?
Say what?
Szechuan chicken.
Szechuan chicken.
It's a bit difficult.
I thought it was alright.
I have a hard time. I have a hard time with the Szechuan. I think you need the. I already referenced the Catwoman line where she's just like, "There's a storm coming, Mr. Wayne, and you'll have to batten down the hatches, and when it hits, you'll wonder. What was it? You'll wonder why, how you survived."
Yeah, there was another editing choice I just remembered I didn't like in the film.
Yeah.
It was during that action sequence I liked, when Blake and that other cop were in the car together, and the cop said something along the lines of, "Oh, I'm gonna get him," and then it cut to like more action. Then it cut back to Blake, and Blake gave like a punchline to that line. It was like the Batman or the robbers. It was like,
Yeah, I remember
why'd you
that.
cut away from that?
I like your real name, Robin.
You should use your real name, Robin.
Robin.
There's
I
a,
failed you, Master Wayne.
I said that one.
there was a. There was
I know.
a-
I want
I know.
to say.
You
You gotta have. I've buried enough Waynes. That's actually a genuine threat he could have said. He's like, I'm the one who shot your parents. Actually,
This one. This
I
one-
could.
this one's
I
good.
could be like Spider-Man 3 and change the continuity for no reason.
This is Alfred in Bane. You are as precious to me as you were to your own mother and father. I swore to them I would protect you, and I haven't.
No, you don't get to bring friends.
I really want one of those lines from the maids that are talking about Bruce
No.
Wayne, where it's just like
like assassin. Yeah.
the maids downstairs, and they're like, "Did you hear? He's a hermit, a cripple." No, a great line would be Ben Mendelsohn's line, where he's just like, "Yes, I hear he has 8-inch nails and mason jars full of piss."
I do like this other one as well.
Yeah.
In the Jim Gordon sort of opening. I knew Harvey Dent. I was his friend. And it will be a very long time before someone
Sound
inspires
like
us
Morgan
the
Freeman.
way he did. I believed in Harvey Dent.
Okay, one criticism left. That's it.
Okay.
Harvey Dent being revealed as the big monster is the most flat, hollow thing, because it's like, "Hello, I'm a terrorist, and I'm telling you this shocking fact. Do you believe me?"
Yeah.
What? What? All right, we all did a little Bane.
Fair bit of Bane.
We could quote other Batman movies in Bane's voice if we really decided. You know,
guys did a little Bane. I was a big guy.
you were a big, big guy. Okay, that was brilliant. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Like a classic Michael Keaton.
And I'm just Dr. Pavel.
Well, until next time, listening people, remember to be kind to each other, but also when you're crushing Ben Mendelsohn's face, put your hand on his shoulder and we'll credit that in the IMDb trivia.